fourth industrial revolution.
The power of artificial intelligence.
This year, right now, this minute, is really the best time in the history of the world to do something.
Collective thinking, collective mind, collective knowledge for humanity.
Let's get this thing done.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
For an endless, enduring dream and 1,000 points of light. This is my mission, and I will complete it.
Sustainable development. We set aside the skepticism. We see you. We hear you.
And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there.
We must treat this new world order, this new world of
contact tracing looks like in the new world order.
It's a need for a new world order.
Create a new world order.
A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
A new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges.
So I see a world order in the future with a multipolar world order.
Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions or on so global a scale. Nor has any previous order had to combine the attributes of the historic balance of power system with global democratic opinion and the exploding technology of the contemporary period.
That in fact we're all going to have to give up a little bit of our sovereignty in order to make the world work.
And I strongly believe India will be a central actor in the new world order.
I just want to let you know the new world order has no legitimacy. And that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well, I want to talk to y'all for a minute about the power of perception. I've been totally computer generated since like the 90s. Nothing's real.
Hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick. And so that people learn to duck their head and not speak up. Because bad idea now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Citizens are advised to take the following steps.
Find us, armoroftruth.net.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism.
Faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.
Greetings, my friends. It is True Normal TV. Just in time for those sirens. Brad from Carolina here with my lovely wife.
Hello,
Summer.
hello. Hi, YouTube.
How's it going over there?
It's going very well. I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah, this has been a deep dive. We've done quite a few deep dives lately. And by the way, Lord willing, this coming week, next week, if the platform here should allow us back.
Yes, Lord willing, we'll be back on the air.
Yeah, we'll be back on the air. But we've also got something very, very special planned. We're going to be doing a deep dive on a topic that we're not going to mention. Not going to mention right now. And it's going to be something that Summer has worked very hard on to get to the bottom of who funds it. That's all you're getting. Who funds it?
And why do we care?
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Key bono, remember? If you're watching this channel, you know what key bono means, right? Who benefits? Who benefits? That's what we're going to do next week on a topic that you've all seen. You all know about it. And it's a big problem. And I wasn't really thinking about it all that much until Summer got in there and dug around and found some stuff that's really compelling that nobody else has been talking about. This is a topic that everybody's talking about. So we've got an angle, and we think it's going to be useful and edifying for the church. And we're going to share it around as widely as possible, and you'll just have to wait to see what it is. See, I'm learning how to do promotion. Okay.
You love to let the cat out of the bag.
I do. I'm known for that. I'm known for just saying it all. You know, the fire hose. That's what I'm like.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Prepare for an Alien Encounter Before It's Too Late. That's the name of the show tonight. Tonight, what we're going to be talking about is Georgia Guidestones. How in the world? Right? You're just clickbaiting me now, right? No. This is going to be about... go ahead, Summer. Tell them just the basic premise about the Ten Commandments and the Guidestones. Go ahead and let them know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when we were covering the topic about the new commandments and the COP27 and that episode, it just hit me. I was like, hey, this is really weird. They brought down the Georgia Guidestones just a few months ago, supposedly bombed. I'm trying to say that without getting... Yeah. You know what I'm saying? On the same day that was done, the attack, and then the actual demolition. And so those are supposed to be kind of like a 10 Commandments, right? That's what's been talked about. Yeah. And then here we have these new 10 Commandments that are going to be coming from the COP27 that are obviously very controversial and problematic. And then I was like, also, the Georgia Guidestones, they sound an awful lot like the SDGs, right? Like with Agenda 21. So, and also these new commandments, these new climate commandments, sound like they're written by the same author. So, you know, it kind of looks like maybe they needed to update those commandments and make sure that there weren't two copies of what they wanted on the planet somewhere. So,
whoa, hold on. Stop right there. Hang on now.
Talk about cat out of the bag.
Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley,
you can't be serious.
And stop calling me Shirley. Surely you can't be serious. So what you think is that somehow or another, these 10 Commandments that they're going to release tomorrow or Sunday or Monday are just in time?
It's pretty fishy.
Just in time. Well, now.
And the uptick of, you know, this whole thing about prepare for alien encounters. And we need to write a protocol for when we make contact, you know? So all of these things together brewing.
That's what you're going to find out tonight, folks, is that Brad needs a new mic boom.
Brad needs to quit
or he's going to
smashing his mic.
Bust something open over here. But everything you're hearing in the media and on the internet about the aliens and the alien agenda and the Navy, the Go Fast and the FLIR and the whatever the gimbal, those alien, those UFO footage from the Navy fighter pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Look, man, this is all propaganda, all of it, and it is all pointing one direction. And that is the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yep,
every bit of it. The alien narrative right now. You'll see as we get through this presentation here tonight that everyone who's coming together right now to just talk about or plan for contact, it all is under the auspices of policy, governance, Right? Governance, off-world governance, all kinds of things. And it all has to do with, hey, you know what? We need a new law. We need a new system. And that's where it is. So the primary article that we're working with tonight is going to be this MSN article right here. Prepare for alien encounter now, before it's too late. And before we get going on that, let's go back and remind ourselves of just what it is that was said in 1970 about where we are today. Zbigniew Brzezinski, from his book Between Two Ages. The technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Now, technotronic, that's his term. Today, we would see this, we could call that technocratic or globalist or just New World Order. But it involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to the instantaneous retrieval by who? The authorities. Who are the authorities? Who will be the authorities in this multipolar world order? That's the tech giants. That's the people who control the internet. Google, these people. There'll be no more governments. Governments aren't nearly as powerful as Google and Facebook and all of those others. In the technotronic society, technocratic society, globalist society, the trend would seem to be towards the aggregation of the individual support of millions of uncoordinated citizens, right? One mind, one hive mind, easily within the reach of magnetic and attractive personalities, exploiting the latest communications techniques to manipulate emotions, and check this last part out, and control reason. And control reason. All right? So, according to recent press releases, now this is the other thing that Summer came across. That's why we're on this topic right now, is because a flurry of UFO stories over the past, this week.
This week and October, November.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Specifically, the article we're covering tonight from a man named John Elliott seems to have put out a press release from St. Andrews College in Scotland. And everybody picked up on it. And he's talking about governance, all right? Because, obviously we're going to make contact with intelligent life out there. We're going to, obviously. So tonight we're going to talk about SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and I'm going to show you how and why that it is a total scam from the start. It is a scam. It's always been a scam. Now, the people running it may not know that they're involved in a scam because a lot of people have darkened minds. They are intelligent, work massive equations. Frank Drake came up with the Drake equation. But he cannot reason past his own autonomy. He cannot reason past the creation of the universe by a personal God. So according to recent press releases and a flood of recent articles that are out there sitting just below the surface of the true mainstream, the current narrative reads something like this. Let me make sure you see this here. That's the headline. Aliens could get in touch tomorrow, says in the article from Microsoft, MSN.com. And we must know what to say to them. Scientists are now meeting to prepare global policies for humanity's first contact with aliens, of course. The University of St. Andrews has joined forces with the UK SETI Research Network. That would be the UK chapter of the scam for extraterrestrial intelligence. Did I slip? I think I slipped. To establish protocols and procedures if aliens are found, right? So you know where this is heading, right? In the years before the pandemic thing we can't talk about or we lose our channels, in the years before that, I mean decade or more before that, things were being put in place so that it could go, so that, you know, just in case something like that would happen, just in case, you know, something got loose, these procedures would be in place to handle it, right? Operation Lockstep by the Rockefeller Foundation. We've covered that here before, last year. So we've seen this building for a long time, and now they're meeting to come up with protocols and procedures of what to do if suddenly they show up, or if suddenly you wake up and the news tells you they've shown up, but you can't see them.
Yeah, they just want to control everything.
It's a lot like that Phantom Menace that made everybody sick. You can't see it. You don't know where. You don't really know if it's there or not.
Another invisible boogeyman.
That's right. The team warns, this team that's, no, it's not just at St. Andrews College in Scotland. They're all over the world. This is just where the team has been set up. This team warns that although there are measures in place for dealing with threats posed by asteroid impacts, for example, that the people of Earth do not have a unified plan in place should SETI's radio telescope arrays identify a signal from another intelligent life form. Or if you should wake up one day and the headlines would say, aliens are in New Mexico. They're shooting pool down at the bar. It probably won't read like that, but you know, a guy can hope. And so that brings us to the new SETI post-detection hub. The new SETI post-detection hub. That's what's set up at St. Andrews College. And it's hosted by, this is where it starts to get interesting and deep. So let's explain. The SETI Post-Detection Hub is the team. They're there to determine what to do once detection is made, whether detection is a signal coming from far away in the universe or if it's aliens on the White House lawn. What do we do post-detection? Well, it's this organization, this team is hosted by the Center for Exoplanet Science, and they more or less do science, but there's some interesting points here. They say on their website there may well be hundreds of billions of extra solar planets in the Milky Way alone. Are we alone in the universe, is the question. So the Center for Exoplanet Science currently combines research from the multidisciplinary approach, including the School of Physics and Astronomy, School of Earth and Environmental Sciences, the Department of Philosophy, so far it's reasonable, School of Biology, the Department of Social Anthropology, and the School of Modern Languages. And their goal, their mission, their rationale is to find out the relation between the evolutionary history of planets and the emergence of life. They say that they're further interested in, and this is what caught my attention, the moral, ethical, and technical aspects of detecting existing or extinct extraterrestrial life and the significance of such a discovery for our societies. Now, also, there is the Center for Global Law and Governance. Also, it's involved here. The Center for Global Law and Governance, which is an international effort bringing together diverse expertise from the sciences and the humanities. And here's what they're actually aiming to do. They're setting out impact assessments. They're setting out protocols, procedures, and treaties. Coming up with treaties designed to allow humanity to respond responsibly.
And sustainably.
Yeah, you'll find lots of keywords in this, in the about sections and the descriptions of what they're up to. They will also bring together experts from around the world to decide how to decipher methods, how to enact space law, and anticipate societal impacts. Now, this wouldn't be a problem, necessarily, except, if you just had some people who were really zealous and actually believed, that there was a reason for going after this, that there was some kind of reason for pouring money into the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's money pits, a fool's errand for sure. But it wouldn't be so bad, except for the fact that you will see by the end of this exactly what this is. It's a scam. But the SETI Post-Detection Hub will bring together experts from around the world to decide, once again, how to decipher methods, enact space law, and impact society. Dr. John Elliott, who is honorary research fellow in the School of Computer Science at St. Andrews, he is the coordinator at the hub. He said, will we ever get a message from ET? We don't really know. We also don't know when this is going to happen. But we do know that we cannot afford to be ill-prepared, scientifically, socially, and politically rudderless for an event that could turn into reality as early as tomorrow, and which we cannot afford to mismanage. If you remember.
So more emergency protocols.
Yeah, remember? We've only got 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
12 years, and the planet will, it's climate.
Setting a
precedent.
Die. Yeah, setting a precedent for more emergency protocols. What could go wrong with that with these people?
Yeah, of course. Now check this piece out here. This is a supplementary article for this primary article we're sharing with you here. Oxford scientist warns that broadcasting Earth's location could provoke an alien invasion. Now that's what SETI does. They listen for signals. The bodies out in the universe, they put off radio waves, lots of them, because of their makeup, and they have different sounds. But you can tell the difference between something that is, shall we say, not alive, something that is just natural, inorganic, perhaps, and something that is actually trying to communicate. Right? A radio wave coming from a radio tower on Earth that signal is going to sound a lot different. There's going to be patterns there. In other words, there'll be definite patterns. When these radio waves come from stars, for example, they don't sound like that. They don't have distinct patterns. They will have some patterns, but like a quasar, as it spins, you'll hear that sort of pattern. But now, just stay tuned for how successful SETI's been at receiving these signals. Just hang on. It's a scam, I'm telling you. So researchers at the U.S. Space Agency have backed a broadcast message dubbed, this is NASA, by the way, have backed a broadcast message dubbed The Beacon in the Galaxy, intended to greet extraterrestrial intelligence. It's an updated form of the Arecibo message broadcast in 1974 for the same purpose. The proposed new message includes basic mathematical and physical concepts to establish a universal means of communication, followed by information on the biochemical composition of life on Earth, It also includes the solar system's location relative to major clusters of stars, along with the digitized depictions of the solar system itself. It has information about Earth's surface and male and female humans. The message concludes with an invitation for whoever might receive it to respond. Anders Sandberg, who is a senior research fellow at Oxford's Future of Humanity Institute, FHI, thought about this, and unless you're aware that nothing's coming back out there, he has the right idea. Someone from a secular perspective, he says you actually need to take this pretty seriously. A better approach than individual groups firing off ad hoc missives would be humanity coordinating as a species. So basically what he's saying is it's not wise to just be broadcasting yourself out there. It's kind of like, when you walk around with your cell phone today, you can be tracked everywhere you go. Same idea in the universe, right? You don't know, let's assume there are life forms out there, civilizations. You don't know who they are, what they're doing. You don't know what they're capable of. You don't know what they like to eat. Might be you. He says, we're not great at coordinating, but I think it's a nice exercise. You heard what he said. The only way to really do this right is if humanity could coordinate as a species. Good luck with that. The only way that happens is when it's forced or compelled, or the Lord returns. Toby Ord at FHI suggested that it might be wise to have a public discussion before sending messages to aliens, pointing out that even the passive operation of SETI, listening for messages, could be a danger, as the message could cause us to entrap ourselves. But overall, the main relevant question is the ratio of peaceful to hostile civilizations, they believe. And he says we have very little evidence, and there is no scientific consensus about whether or not anything out there might be hostile or not. So, given the risk of being annihilated by a possible civilization out there, that is thousands or millions of years, right? If that's your worldview, if your worldview is evolution, and you believe the universe is 13 some billion years old, that's what it is, they say this week. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. If that's your worldview, then and you think it's possible that other civilizations exist, then they could be millions of years advanced beyond us. You wouldn't want to run into that one. The risk is not a good one. Sandberg says, it doesn't sound like to me a good situation in which to take active steps toward contact. Scientists, including Stephen Hawking, have said the same thing. In a documentary released in 2010, Hawking pointed out that on Earth, the interactions between civilizations on different levels of technological advancement tend not to work out very well for the lesser advanced group. That's how it's always been through history, right? Conquering, taking over the group with more technology, with more power. Wins, takes over, subjugates the other. But referring to the arrival of Europeans in the Americas, Hawking said, we only have to look at ourselves to see how intelligent life might develop into something we would not want to meet. So it's dangerous, right? It's a dangerous proposition. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. That's a little bit of an introduction for you about where we're headed. And I'm going to show you flat out that SETI is a scam. And as those of you who are familiar with our work know, we regularly identify the errors of worldviews, and specifically an old, worn-out, forgotten philosophy known as positivism or logical positivism, but it seems to have made a comeback. Positivism is the idea that science is the only truth, that there is no value whatsoever in even contemplating the existence of a supernatural realm, and gods are just out of the question. No need for it. That's logical positivism. And it leads to, right, they'll say they're not religious. We hear that a lot, don't we? The scientists, especially back in the day. Now, this philosophy, philosophy of science, and it died almost as soon as it got started because it's logically ridiculous. It can't sustain itself. But this idea that science is ultimate truth, is absolute truth, leads to a religion also that follows logically from it, known as scientism. Right? That science has all the answers. Which is in favor of a return to the scientific method as our best man-made tool for arriving at decisions regarding our response to crises involving health, climate change, alien invasions. So, in light of that, we believe that this topic is well within our scope of aptitude and our research aptitude and our knowledge of culture and our theological aptitude. So we believe we can offer you a thoughtful commentary on this tonight. And as we begin this journey, understand that everyone's making metaphysical assumptions. Everyone we're going to hear from tonight, all the guys at SETI, all the folks at the United Nations, World Economic Forum, they're making metaphysical assumptions. In other words, metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that examines the nature of reality. Why does anything exist? That's a metaphysical question. Who are we? Who made us? Why are we here? Where are we going? What does it all mean? Is there anything at all beyond this world? So our foundational absolute truths, our metaphysical assumptions as we start out tonight, just a couple ideas that are very simple. The first one is there are only two options that any person has to make, and that is Christ or chaos. It is Christ or chaos. There's more evidence for belief in Jesus Christ than there is for believing that there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. And we mean, if we're going to define alien, define extraterrestrial intelligence, we're talking about beings that are capable of making moral choices, that have intellect, emotion, and a will. We're talking about life forms beyond the molecular or we're talking about beings that choose, beings that make decisions, that make moral choices. They're intellectual. That's what we mean by alien or extraterrestrial intelligence, so just so we know what we're talking about. Because look, there are extraterrestrials, right? They're there. Angels and demons, right? Those are otherworldly creatures, supernatural creatures. They exist. But this form of life that these groups are talking about, not a chance. They're not there. And by the way, as we set out on this, we want to make sure that no one gets the idea that we're here trying to make evidential claims for the existence of God or for the truth, claims of Christianity, as a means for anyone to arrive in the faith, right? No amount of evidence for the existence of God, belief in Christ, or the truth claims of Christianity has ever saved anyone. No one has logically arrived at salvation. It's never happened. That doesn't happen. That's not how God saves souls. Reason and logic have never and will never bring anyone into a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Facts do not cause a person's heart to be made new. Proofs do not transform anyone from conformity to the world to a renewed mind that lives and demonstrates the perfect will of God. And no amount of information can save a man from the wrath of the thrice holy God. So what about aliens? Specifically, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. And what is the purpose of this world? We can answer that one for you right now. The purpose of this creation, the purpose of this universe, all of it, is for God's glory. This universe exists. This planet and all other planets, everything in the universe exists to provide a backdrop for redemptive history. That's it. Now that really aggravates scientists when you talk like that. But that's objective truth. That's objective reality. This world exists. This universe exists to provide a backdrop for God's plan of redemption for his people. And as we think about these issues tonight, we're going to have to define evil. We want to understand what evil is. I know that's a tough one there. That you can find 1,000 debates on YouTube right now, people debating evil. What is it? What is the problem of evil? But from the Christian worldview, we have no problem defining evil. Evil is nothing. In other words, evil is no thing. That is to say that evil has no being. It's not a thing. Evil is an action, which includes not only direct behaviors or deeds, but it includes thoughts and intentions. There is no substance known as evil. Now, there is a being that's known as good, and that's the Creator God. But evil is the privation or the absence of good. So the only way that anyone could ever identify whether or not something is evil is when it's in the presence of good. And that is God. This is his universe. So when people say you can't be, God can't exist, you can't have a God who claims to be all good if there's evil in the world, my friend, the only way evil can exist is in these circumstances until God ends it. And that brings us to the question, what is sin? What is evil? What is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. God's law, God's will. And so sin is the active engagement of a moral agent in evil. A moral agent actively engaging in evil. So when we're thinking about extraterrestrials and these aliens, we want to, they would have to be a type of being that could make a choice, a moral choice. It would have intellect and emotion and would be able to make a moral choice, would be able to actively engage in evil or not. And so you might think, well, this is too much detail. You've gone too far. No, listen. The reason I'm bringing this up is because evil is not always the ugliest thing that we see or imagine. There is no neutrality, so evil is simply any actions or thought or intentions that work against the will of God, who is truth and is good. So you run into a lot of people who are really nice, moral, upstanding people who are evil. Not in the sense that the world would define it. But there is no neutrality. He who is not with me is against me. Thus saith the Lord. Nobody's in the middle. So once again, our article for you tonight is this one. It is the Microsoft, it is the MSN.com article. Prepare for alien encounter now before it's too late. Warn the scientists. We talked about John Elliott a moment ago. As we get into that, before we start building our case, we're going to get to a timeline in just a moment to let you know, how did we get where we are? That'll help us see where we're headed. But as we go through that timeline with you, I want you to understand a few of these things. Everyone that you're going to hear from or see, or the events that you see happening, everyone out there is playing along with one of these, a social imaginary. It's like it's the prevailing meta narrative that the greatest number of members of a group is willing to accept. So if in the United States, the greatest number of people are willing to believe that extraterrestrial life forms are out there and they could be a threat, then the greatest number of members of our society are probably going to be willing to let the government make rules for that. And there are two basic positions that people come from when you're deciding, do aliens exist or not, or who am I? Who am I in all of this universe? We've talked about this here before. One of these perspectives, mimesis, sees the world with a given order, a telos, or a purpose. It has a given meaning, and that human beings conform themselves to the given design of creation. Men with women. That kind of thing. Right? You conform yourselves. We conform ourselves to the order that we see around us. The other perspective that we really see taking charge today is poesis, or these people see the world as just raw material. That the individual can manipulate the world, or even his own flesh, even his own body, to create his own purpose and meaning. These are the people who are more likely to, not always, now this is not cut and dried, but people who are confused about what gender they are have no problem accepting extraterrestrial life forms. And what poesis really causes is this thing that we see happening today, this thing called expressive individualism. That strong desire to express and fully assert who you feel you are. Defining one's personal identity as an essential right. Right? If that guy feels like a woman and he wants to be treated like a woman, expressive individualism, the way it is today, these folks they think that is their essential right to be whatever they want to be whatever they feel like they are. Right? The foundation of liberty is whatever I feel it is. Right? It's self-creation. Self-creation is the foundation of reality. So that's really widespread in our society today. Follow your heart, be true to yourself, you be you, all of this. Philip Reif has written about this, triumph of the therapeutic. He criticizes Freud heavily. And then these two writers have dealt with these issues over the past 2 to 3 years. They've dealt with it very well. From the Christian worldview. Rod Dreher, Live Not by Lies. And Carl Trueman from a different perspective, looking at the overall philosophy that got us here in this position where today it is possible for us to be completely deceived into believing that aliens are here without any evidence. John Elliott is the coordinator for the SETI Post-Detection Hub. He's the leading contributor for the post-detection research and development since the late 1990s. He's contributed significantly to SETI's endeavor through many roles, this post-detection task force. Now listen to some of his involvements. In 2012, he was with Lord Martin Rees as a patron. He co-founded the UK SETI Research Network, which we said. His work crosses many traditional boundaries and disciplines. He's a linguist, deals with human language, universals, computational linguistics, signal processing, dolphin communication, and this one. Also, global impact strategies for post-detection, decipherment of extraterrestrial signals, or how to manage the dissemination and societal impact. Just to wrap that up in common language. One of his specialties is how to, I don't want to say manipulate, that would be too strong, but how to determine what people are thinking and determine how you could make them think what you wanted them to think. That would be one outcome of his research.
Tell about a little bit about his background.
Yeah, it's coming up right here. In 2013, he was named one of the 5 most important people in the hunt for life on other planets by All About Space, which is a science magazine. His work has also been referenced multiple times by NASA. Some of the funded projects that he's led out have included work with UK police and security agencies, including, guess who? MI5. If you don't know who MI5 is, that would be the British version or the UK version of the CIA. Specifically, what he did in that capacity was identifying certain behaviors, how to identify certain behaviors. Once again, by itself, that doesn't mean a whole lot. But what do? We take evidence, little pins, and we put them in the board. After a while, we can see a picture. We can see what's going on here. All right, so let's talk about SETI just a little bit here. Yeah, this is what John Elliott said. Here's one of his quotes, or a couple of his quotes. He said, "We cannot afford to be ill-prepared for an event that could happen as early as tomorrow." He also said, "We need to go beyond thinking about the impact on humanity, considering the human social response, and the time to do this is now." All right, so they're beating the drums. It's time to do it. So, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, was founded in 1984 to explore the universe and find life on other planets. It runs a series of programs using radio and optical telescopes to search for signals from aliens. The work is reliant on computers to extract any artificial signals from the noise that comes in from the universe. The first SETI experiment was conducted around 50 years ago. There have been no signals detected that prove the existence of alien intelligence. One more time. There have been in 50 years, there have been no signals detected that prove existence of alien intelligence. Seth Shostak, I think he's the senior astronomer at SETI. He said he was confident that if there is life out there, we will find it within 2 decades. He said that back in 2014. And you'll find that everyone involved with SETI says that. We're going to find it. We're going to find it. You know, a lot of times people will accuse Christians, atheists, or, scientists who don't believe in God will say, that Christians are committing the God of the gaps fallacy. Anything we can't explain, we just substitute God. God did it. Well, first of all, that's not how Christianity works anyway, but let me ask you, what is this? What is this? We're going to find it eventually. It's going to happen. They have no evidence. They don't even have any reason to believe they will ever find any evidence, much less actual beings. But we're going to find it one day. We really believe we are. Well, that's that future aliens of the gaps fallacy, if you will. Anyway, previous searches have covered a few thousand star systems at most, and it's likely that we would need to scour a few million before we would be successful. He said in an interview with Popular Mechanics, but advances in computer technology have sped up the search and will continue to do so, right? Look, our technology is getting so good that's why we're going to find aliens. We're still in the very early days when it comes to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. He said, saying that the silence is deafening, or there's just a bunch of silence out there. He said, that's a bit like if Columbus, looking to discover a new continent, only sailed 10 miles off the coast of Spain before turning back to say, nothing out here. I guess that whole exploration gig isn't going to work out. There's some logical problems. There's some fallacies in that argument there. This is not like Columbus setting out at all. No person is going out into the universe to explore it. I imagine if Columbus sat on the beach and listened really hard for 1,000 years and never heard anything, that would be about like what SETI's doing. Even if we do find an alien intelligence, it's unlikely that they would be any closer than a couple of hundred light. Now listen, right? They'll say in one breath that we're going to find it. It's just computers are getting stronger. Eventually we're going to find it. And then they start qualifying. Even if we do find one, it's unlikely they would be any closer than a couple hundred light years. In other words, it would take 400 years for messages to go back and forth for a single reply. Anyway, so you can see this is a fool's errand. The Lord has not provided for anything like this to take place. It's the result of a darkened mind. Someone's intellect is compromised. The SETI Institute is part of the wider group known as SETI, which also includes projects run by Harvard and Berkeley. So that's a little bit about SETI, a little background on SETI. Now here comes, this is going to be my favorite part of the show right here. We're going to talk just a bit about Frank Drake. Before we do that, Summer, what's going on? Anything so far? Now Summer's got lots of notes and research over there, and I don't want to go on. I don't want to be rambling on for too long without checking in with Summer. So far, what do you think?
Well, I'm just thinking, they really want to have everybody sort of like on the edge of their seat. Are the aliens going to come? They keep seeding us. They keep seeding us. Well, obviously this is going to justify generating money for that particular department, right? We know that SETI and the department, the DOD, Department of Defense, they're working together in tandem to keep the eyes on the skies. And, well, is this not another effort at surveillance of the skies? So that anybody that, might be doing something dubious that they don't like, they're going to shut that down.
The lovely Summer. Yeah, you know what? hadn't thought of it that way, right? Mm-hmm. We are talking about radio telescopes, and we are talking about listening.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but Summer is, that's why I'm very fortunate, because I have a wife that is always keeping an eye on things, because I'm a bit, monomaniacal. I can get on one topic and I get engrossed in it.
Yeah, I like to look at things from like the huge, the
30,000 foot.
Yeah, the 30,000
30,000 foot.
So I'm just thinking this is like a surveillance grid. in the skies and in the space. You know, like obviously they're building it here for us on the ground, but okay, this is justifying having it everywhere. And I think it's even more obvious when we get into talking about the Artemis Accords, but I'll hold that for later.
Artemis Accords, yeah. Folks, this is going to be, you're gonna just stay tuned. This is going to be good. We're already 1 hour in, so I don't want this to go on and be a marathon.
It's always a marathon.
We're good. Well, I'm gonna try to rein it in, and I do want to get to this section here about Frank Drake, and I want to explain to you why this thinking is, well,
who just passed away. God bless his soul. So rest in peace.
We don't want to speak ill of the dead here. That's not what we're doing. But Frank Drake was wrong about some things, and he was wrong about some things that are very, very important. And we want to use his example. All right, we want to use his example to show you errors in thinking. Anyone ever read Don Quixote? Yeah.
Well, he was definitely like he was right there with Carl Sagan, so he was this dreamer archetype that everybody could sort of latch onto.
Yeah, and you couldn't argue with Carl Sagan. He just wouldn't hear it. I remember R.C. Sproul talking about he had the opportunity to talk to Carl Sagan one time, and he reported that Carl Sagan wouldn't even entertain. Remember, we talked about logical positivism just a moment ago. No supernatural is allowed into the conversation. And Sproul said that was what he encountered with Carl Sagan. I wish I had thought about that before, because that would be a great clip to play right here. It's pretty short. But anyway, that being said, that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with incomplete worldviews. And incomplete worldviews lead to errant thinking that ultimately is a little crazy. It's insane. It doesn't serve you well.
Yeah, when you're not harnessed to the truth, you can just sort of go into the Wild West and everybody will come with you like, yeah, that sounds like a great thing.
Well said. Harnessed to the truth. Founded, your foundation is in ultimate reality, absolute truth. Have you got, do you see the chat over there on your side?
I do.
So let's just say hello for a second to our people up there. There's Crystal.
Hi, Crystal.
Josh Gilbert.
Josh Gilbert in the house.
Yeah, and
Corey G.
Kayla Pratt is out there.
Kayla Pratt. Cat Flat.
Yeah, look at we've got a what do we have here?
It is really good to see you guys.
Five or six folks in here. Yeah, you guys.
Thank
awesome.
you for.
It's awesome to see half a dozen people here
being
with
us. Yeah,
it's awesome that anybody watches. Honestly, that's how I've always felt. And Josh Gilbert remembers those days back on the old Brad from Carolina channel when we started out. It was just, sometimes it's just me and Josh.
Yeah, and I've heard about you and the Josh Gilbert stories. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's some other folks that back then, but yeah, it's just like basically like a Zoom call back in the day. But thanks for being here, folks. It's good to see you out there. It's encouraging that anyone would be here watching.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
On the Backup channel.
Being with us, for spending your time with us.
We've been struggling, with views and trying to grow the channel. And many things have been happening here. We're not making excuses here, but, just health problems in the family, things that we will talk about how if we have to be careful, because we're talking about, let me just say it like this, jab injuries. We're talking about that, things like that are happening in our family right now. And we're going to we're starting up our podcast season this week. And it won't be the first episode. I'm not telling you what the first episode's about because that would let the cat out of the bag. I'm not doing that. But in soon within the first few episodes, we're going to see we can say way more things on the podcast, on the audio version, So we'll tell you about what's going on there if you'll subscribe to the Armor of Truth on Demand podcast or just the Armor of Truth podcast. So thanks for being here with us, folks. We look forward to getting back over on Armor of Truth next week, but it's fun to be here doing this. Frank Drake, as Summer said, died this year, September 2nd. Let's see, how old was he?
He was 92.
90? 2 years young. So he had a nice long life. Frank Drake was a radio astronomer known for his lifelong search for extraterrestrial life. In 1976, Drake was appointed the Goldwin Smith Professor of Astronomy at Cornell. The next year, he served as technical director with Carl Sagan and the science filmmaker Anne Dryan. In the creation of the Voyager Golden Record. That's the image that you see there on your screen, or that's the image that's on the Golden Record, which the Golden Record is a recording of sounds and images portraying the diversity of life and culture on Earth, and it was placed aboard Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecraft. Yeah, I know. It's some people think that's all a scam too, and I don't know. But this is where it gets interesting. This is where we're going to have, well, I don't want to say we're going to have a good time tearing this down, but we're going to tear it down. We're going to destroy bad arguments. That's what the Apostle Paul, under inspiration of the Holy Spirit, said that we need to do. Destroy bad arguments. So in 1961, Frank Drake developed the Drake equation. This equation its purpose is to estimate the number of technological civilizations that might exist in the Milky Way. In the Milky Way, specifically. And so he set out to create a formula to roughly estimate the number, you see there on your screen, the N of advanced detectable civilizations likely to exist in the Milky Way, where R equals the rate of star formation in the Milky Way, F sub P equals the fraction of those stars with planetary systems, N sub E equals the average. Are you guys following? You got your notepads out? I'm going to do this.
Are we back in math class?
I'm going to do it. I think this is cool. This part of it's cool. So N sub E is the average number of planets in each planetary system that can potentially support life. That looks like, I have a typo there on my side here, but it looks like F sub L is the fraction of suitable planets on which life actually appears, times F sub I, which is the fraction of planets with life which develop intelligent civilizations. F sub C is the fraction of these civilizations which develop technologies with signs that would be detectable in space. So, it's covering all the bases. Times L, which is the length of time such civilizations release detectable signals into space. Now, according to the Drake equation, there's a decent chance, right? You want to pin all of your hopes, right? You want to pin everything on a decent chance, right? That's what we've got here. All of this brilliant computational ability, it's for a decent chance. Statistically speaking, that intelligent extraterrestrials are out there somewhere. Even if the stars would have to align for us to find and contact each other, given the vastness of our galaxy and enormous distances between planets. John Zarnecki, Emeritus Professor of Space Sciences at the Open University in the UK, says, finding life or making contact is always going to be highly unlikely until the day we do it. Right? There's more of that language. more of that language, that they have to make up for the fact that nothing has happened. Bubkus, zilch. And please stay tuned, because in just a bit, I think it's not too far into the show now, I'm going to play for you. We've got a clip, a video. It's a remix of a video that I made 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, about this topic, with some new stuff in it. But anyway, so crunching the numbers, Drake and his colleagues estimated that there could be up to 50,000 civilizations capable of communicating across our galaxy. Now, since they did that, a lot has changed. We have learned more about the universe. We've learned so much more about our universe that number, that there could be 50,000 civilizations capable. What the truth is, folks, is that we shouldn't even be here. What you find out is it is so improbable for life to exist in this universe that we shouldn't even be here. Right? That's the truth. So Frank Drake he established the organization that would become SETI, or the SETI Institute, searching for civilizations on other planets. A fool's errand. So it was in 1960 when Drake was a young astronomer at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory at Green Bank in West Virginia, where he turned the newly constructed Green Bank radio telescope towards Tau Ceti, a nearby star similar to our sun. Now pay attention here, folks. Here's what happened. Right? They were able to do it. They were able to point this dish, this receiver, at a star and listen to the signal that it put off. He reasoned that for the previous 40 years, Earth's increasingly powerful radar, radio, and television transmissions had formed an expanding shell of electromagnetic radiation spreading across space. If any aliens happen to be listening, the signals would alert them to the presence of intelligent life on our planet. Once again, if that's your worldview, why would you want to announce yourself? Anyway. So, when they pointed the receiver toward Tau Ceti, they listened. He and his team listened to the noise of Tau Ceti for half an hour. And that noise was a persistent hiss. Then they went ahead and switched to another star, Epsilon Eridani. They were astonished and excited when they heard a series of irregular pulses. It's artificial. There's a pattern. It's clearly artificial. We've done it. On the second try, we found it. It's intelligent. Further research revealed that the signals were coming from a nearby military base. And since that time, nothing else has happened. Not a peep. Not a peep. Nothing. Now, I want to share with you now what I think is going on here with this thinking. It's not just Frank Drake, it's everyone who is involved in this passionate push to find alien life, to create protocols for the Earth so that we'll know how to respond. Even the people, even the agencies who are interested in, what was it called? Summer, the DART, where they blew up the asteroid recently.
Oh, yeah.
It was DART. Mm-hmm. Even those people, they have an essential problem in their thinking. They're given to fantasy. Right? To think that you can keep the planet from being destroyed, you can't. You can't. Now, it's noble. It seems like a noble venture to try to.
God is in control of that, though.
Right.
Yeah, that's up to God.
Right. This planet is only It's only here now, and if it lasts for another 30 seconds, because the Lord upholds it with his voice, with the power of his voice. What does Hebrews say? Let's look. Before we
so they're just sort of like pumping everybody up, like yeah, we can control if a asteroid comes, and we can find aliens, and we can go here and we can go there. So it's just pumping people up. It's false.
It is. What do you call it? Hopium. Right. Who is that? Green. What's his name? Green. The atheist guy who, I'm probably not atheist, but he's always debating Christians, telling us how great.
Adam Green.
Adam Green. Hopium. I don't know if he came up with that, but that's where I've heard it.
Right.
Hopium. Right here in the Word of God, we get this wisdom. Long ago and at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, but in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things. Now pay attention to this, folks. This is a richly Trinitarian passage. He has spoken to us in these last days. He has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God, that is Christ, and the exact imprint of his nature, and he upholds the universe by the word of his power. By the word of his power. The heavens declare the glory of God. Okay, look, this is where we are now. Right. We'll do some literature for just a moment. In 1605 and 1615, Miguel de Cervantes wrote the two-part Spanish epic novel, El Ingenioso Hidalgo Don Quixote de la Mancha.
You're having too much fun.
Yeah, this is good. Or The Ingenious Gentleman Don Quixote of La Mancha. Or just known simply as Don Quixote. This is often credited as the first modern novel, one of the greatest works ever written, also one of the most translated books in the world. It was a major influence on literature. Some of the direct references that you'll find are in Alexander Dumas' The Three Musketeers, Mark Twain's Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and Edmond Rostan's Cyrano de Bergerac. By the 20th century, this novel had come to occupy a canonical space as one of the foundations of letters in literature. But what are we talking about, right? This is not a literature show. The plot revolves around the adventures of a man who was a member of the lowest nobility, something known as a hidalgo from La Mancha. And his name was Alonso Quijano. And his sidekick, or his squire, as is known in the book, was a simple farmer, a witty, simple farmer, known as Sancho Panza. Now, here's the story. Here's why this is important. Alonso reads so many romance stories that he becomes enraptured with fantasy to the point where he cannot reason to objective truth or objective reality anymore. In other words, Don Quixote does not see the world for what it is. And he prefers to imagine that he's living out a knightly story, with the K, that he's a knight. That's meant for the annals of all time. He thinks of himself as an epic man of honor. Unnecessarily constructing or imagining a reality that better suits the desires of his heart. Poesis. Right? The world is just raw material for me to create myself in, so that I can create my own existence. I can speak my reality into existence. Unnecessarily constructing or imagining a reality that better fits what I want it to be. Originally interpreted as a comic novel. After the French Revolution, Don Quixote was presumed for its central ethic, that in some ways individuals can be intelligent while their society is unreal. Right? It's the society that's crazy, not me. In the 19th century, the story was seen as a social commentary, but it wasn't really clear whose side Cervantes was on. Many critics came to view the work as a tragedy, and that's where we're focused here. It's a tragedy, because Don Quixote's idealism is impulsive and it's impracticable. In other words, he's flighty, or in colloquial language, he's a little crazy. In other words, reality was just too strong. Reality was just too present. Reality's just too real, right? We're going to keep listening for those sounds because they're going to come someday, when you've got no evidence and no reason to ever even embark on that experiment. So from this masterpiece of literature, we get a word, Quixotic. Quixotic means, generally, Quixotic means extravagantly chivalrous, if you're talking specifically about Don Quixote, or romantic thinking, idealism, visionary, but in an impractical sense, or impracticable. It also means impulsive and often rashly unpredictable. I would include Blavatsky, Bailey, people like that. I would include the Theosophists in this as well. So the point here is that the search for alien life is a good example of the Quixotic or the Quixote symbol. Some of the most intelligent scientists in the world, in the history of the world, have boldly claimed that it is arrogant to assume that there are no other intelligent inhabitants in our universe. 10 years before Drake began his search for extraterrestrial life, physicist Enrico Fermi famously asked, "Where the hell is everybody?" Right? Why are you looking? That's a good question. Why are you looking out there? So despite continued efforts to detect intelligent signals from outer space by pointing radio telescopes of increasing power at thousands of stars and across millions of different radio frequencies, SETI scientists have continued to draw a blank. The only signal that they ever got that was even close, was actually artificial, was from a military base a few miles away. Not a single signal has ever been picked up to suggest that somewhere out there there's any other life form. Drake said to the Royal Society at a meeting in 2010, he said, quote, "I don't think the silence is eerie. It's predictable. We would expect the silence, right? Because we really know there's nothing out there. We just hope." Anyway, sorry, that's not the quote. The quote is, "There may be up to 10,000 civilizations in the galaxy, but given that the galaxy also contains 100 billion stars, that means we will have to search around 10 million stars before we have a realistic chance of finding one." Boy, couldn't you find something better to do? Like mow the yard? I'm sure the fence needs painting. Something is better than this. He said this, though, and this is what you'll always hear. "But We will make contact one day. Right? Tilting at windmills. That's what they're doing. And that's what the story of Quixote, that's really what he was doing. You see him there, taking on the windmill. He believed they were dragons. And his sidekick, his squire, Sancho Panza, helped him. He went along with the delusion. Yes, sir, these are dragons. Let's fight them. And that's what we see happening in our research universities quite a lot. When you have a man like Drake, who's got ambition and he's got pull, he's got some power, and people want his position or they want to be on his coattails, they'll believe in these things.
Well, we know that Ecclesiastes 3:11, right? God placed eternity in our hearts, so we all have that feeling that we're part of something greater and we're going to something greater and there's something greater going on. But if people don't have God's word, then it's easy to misplace that, to be misdirected.
Beautiful. Well said. Well said. Let's do that. Let's look at Ecclesiastes 3 for just a moment. That's excellent. That's my wife there, folks. That's good. That's why we're doing this show this way now, so the show can be good.
It's always been good.
Okay, Ecclesiastes 3. For everything there is a season. This is the turn, right? This is, this one. There's a time for everything. Starting at verse 9, though, it says, "What gain has the worker from his toil? I've seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end." What does that mean?
We can't know.
Faith is in Christ. It is in the finished work of Christ. That's where the truth is. That's where it starts. Not in now, there's nothing wrong inherently with researching and trying to understand what's going on in the universe, but a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ and a regenerated heart, eyes to see, in the right context with that phrase, where we can understand Scripture, we can pray that the Holy Spirit would guide us as we read and study the Word. You come to understand clearly it's just foolish to be taking on such endeavors. But what Summer's saying here is so important, because what we see here in Frank Drake, he is made in the image of God. That's why he cares. Now, he's confused, as many of these folks are. I would say as all of them are. He's confused about what to do with that sense of eternity that's on his heart. He feels like that there's more to existence than what we can see.
And I would even argue that he might be a true believer in that, but he could also just be like part of the con. He could just be wearing that archetype.
Yeah, this is where
we can never know that.
Yeah, this is where Summer and I balance each other well. I'll always be taking the perspective, usually, not always, but mostly I'll be taking the perspective that these people are true believers, that they believe in what they're doing, and most of the time I'm wrong. She's right. Most of the time they're involved in the con somehow. Right.
It's just a good balance that we have, I guess. Right?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I'm not. Yeah, I don't mean to say that that's.
We can look at it from both perspectives.
That's not a
be
flaw.
Fair.
Yeah,
be
that's
fair. Yeah,
that's a strength. That's not a flaw.
Well, we do know that the powers that be put certain personalities out there for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, culture shapers.
And as we, the reason Summer's on point with this is because what has the search for extraterrestrial intelligence actually done for society? Nothing.
Well, it's also gotten people really involved in the occult, right?
It's done damage.
And
Think
looking to the spirit world, they want to make contact. So we know that those are demons, right? So it's like people are initiating contact with demons, thinking that they're initiating contact with aliens, and that's terrible. That's horrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's think. Let's see. I'm going to try to see if I can do this on the fly here. What's the name I'm trying to come up with here?
I don't know.
Well, we're thinking, what has this search and this, what has this mindset done? What's it caused? Let's look at this. Anybody know Jack Parsons?
Yep, Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons here. Mm-hmm. This kind of mindset. This poor man was obviously started. He was a brilliant scientist, rocketeer. But obviously troubled.
Theosophy.
And who is this? That's not Jack Parsons, but that is the late, great Werner von Braun.
Yeah, and they were definitely meddling in spiritism.
Yeah, that's the point. So you get L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard was part of this crew. This is what the fascination with extraterrestrial life has really caused. I don't know, man. I'm going to start wasting time right here, but this might be worth it because Von Braun was Van Braun. Some people say he's responsible for, I guess, if you believe, that he is who they say he is, and I do. I tend to believe that he's responsible for most of the Saturn V rocket, which took us to the moon. I mean, maybe it did, perhaps it did. Some people think that we didn't go to the moon. I don't quite go that far. I just think I don't care. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't around then, but I tend to think that if they did go, they didn't show us the way they went. We didn't see the actual way. And plus, you think about the space race with Russia at the time. Here you go. Here's a little fun for you, folks.
Well, speaking of bombs, what is it that makes America the world's greatest nuclear power? And what is it that will make it possible for us to spend $20,000 million of our taxpayers' money to put some idiot on the moon? Well, it was the great, enormous superiority of American technology, of course, as provided by our great American scientists, such as Dr. Werner von Braun. Gather round while I sing you of Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience. Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmazi, says Werner von Braun. Don't say that he's hypocritical, say rather that he's apolitical. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Some have harsh words for this man of renown, but some think our attitude should be one of gratitude, like the widows and cripples in old London town, who owe their large pensions to Werner von Braun. You too may be a big hero once you've learned to count backwards to zero. In German or English, I know how to count down. And I'm learning Chinese, says Werner von Braun.
Okay. That's enough of that. Yes, yes. Wow, that's a lot of applause. Okay, all right. All right. So how was that? We enjoyed that?
That was a tangent.
Yeah, that's what I'm known for. That's why these shows go 4 hours or more sometimes. And, well, you know, sometimes we just feel it out and roll with it. So, anyway. Many scientists now think intelligent life elsewhere in the universe is a real possibility. NASA recently launched an 8-month inquiry to investigate hundreds of these, what they're calling now UAP. And I think UFO is just fine. But NASA's they're going to investigate it. They're going to tell you they're investigating it. And their investigation, as far as we can tell, is being led by Dr. Thomas Zurbuchen. But I saw where he had retired. Summer, you didn't find any more information on that, did you? As far as we know, he's still heading this thing up.
Yeah, he's still there.
And he is with NASA's Science Mission Directorate. And this group of 16 individuals is due to report back on their findings next summer. They're going to look at reports of UFOs. They're going to look at the Navy stuff, those videos, I guess. I can't help but think that this is narrative control all the way through. What do they... Right, any agency that is... This is kind of like the simulation theory hypothesis. Any sufficiently advanced civilization is going to create simulations of its ancestors. I don't know why people would think that would be the case, but they do. But I would say that any agency, any government-funded agency with the opportunity, and who is still under, the control of, the Congress, right? The Congress is who controls funds and controls NASA. When they have the opportunity next summer to make a report that's going to influence a lot of people about how they think, right? This is going to be an essential worldview moment. It's going to be a tipping point for a lot of people. Whatever NASA comes up with, a lot of people are going to be just believing it. Is there any chance you're going to get an organic, pure truth from that? What do you think? Any truth going to come out of that that little committee who, as they go?
Well, I just look at who's in charge of this committee, and when you look at who's in charge of this committee, it's part of the same circles that are, with the WEF, WHO, UN. It's all the same circle of characters. They write the rules because they make the rules.
NASA announces unidentified aerial phenomena study team. Team members, here they are. Do you have the list? I've got a list here. Do you have a list there?
I do.
Let's go down to it together for just a moment here. Quickly, because coming up next, folks, let me tell you, coming up here in just a few minutes, I'm going to play for you that video I've been promising you. We're just going to shut it down. You'll understand why SETI is a scam. You'll understand why this stuff, honestly, why this committee researching UAPs, not look. If anyone goes in there with the or comes out of that, I guess, saying that, yeah, it's really possible, that these could be extraterrestrials, then you're getting sold a line. But we're going to play that video for you in just a second. David Spergel, selected to chair NASA's independent study on identified aerial phenomena. Man, I wish I could get this to be a little...
Make it a little bigger.
Yeah, it's just make the logo bigger. Well, that's something, I guess.
Yeah, well, they've definitely, it's people that are involved in science in this list.
I mean, there's some scientists in here, and we're not trying to be hyper skeptics here. That's not what we're doing. We just look at this and see what we can find. David Spergel, Flatiron Institute for Computational Astrophysics. Interest and range from search for planets and nearby stars to the shape of the universe. What we want to look for here, do we have any SETI people? Do we have any people who are coming in here with a worldview? Well, we've got a lot of secular worldviews here, I'm sure, but what can we find out about the worldview of these folks that we see here? Here's Anna Maria Berea. How about that name? Anna Maria Berea. Nice. Anna Maria Berea, Associate Professor of Computational Data and Science at George Mason. Research affiliate with SETI. There you go. And the original in Mountain View, California. Research affiliate with SETI. What do you think she's looking for here in this? How do you think she is going to evaluate the evidence?
Techno-signatures.
Oh, yeah. That's,
signs of life.
Yeah, there's that term. Yeah, techno-signatures. Yeah, excellent. Signs of life.
Signs of intelligent life, rather.
Yeah, she's going to be, you have to think this, right? Everyone has a worldview, and your worldview is that's how you filter the world. That's the lens through which you view things, and that's the lens through which you make choices. So her worldview is certainly, Anna Maria Berea, she is going to be looking for life. She's going to be looking for intelligence. She's going to be, I know, it's possible for, look, nobody's neutral. Everyone's going to come into this saying that, oh, we're not biased, we're going to be objective. No, they're not. It's not possible. It's impossible to be neutral and objective, especially on things like this when you've got so much invested in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Federica Bianco, Joint Professor at University of Delaware Department of Physics and Astrophysics, the Biden School of Public Policy. Oh, no.
That sounds solid.
Wow. Oh, no. The Biden School of Public Policy. Goodness. I mean, well, there's some, that is a softball there. That's setting up for some really awful jokes that we're going to shy away from here. Cross-disciplinary scientists with a focus on using data science to study the universe and find solutions to urban-based problems on Earth. I think I see where that's headed. Deputy project scientist for the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. We'll start the legacy survey. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. No SETI there. Paola Bontempi, 6th Dean and 2nd woman to lead the Graduate School of Oceanography at the University of Rhode Island. Also Professor of Oceanography at URI. So, Oceanography here. Reggie Brothers. That's a good name. Reggie Brothers. Reggie Brothers and Anna Maria Berea should have dinner. Reggie Brothers. That's a good.
Sounds like a taco place.
What? Yeah. All right. Okay, so Reggie Brothers, though, is a...
U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
There you go.
Yeah, we got our DOD connections right here.
Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm. Got to make sure everybody's on the ground.
Also a distinguished fellow at Georgetown Center for Security, Emerging Technology, member of the visiting committee for sponsored research at UMass, or MIT. Jen Buss, CEO of the Potomac Institute, and worked extensively with NASA to explore policy issues and strategic planning processes for astronaut medical care, cancer diagnostics and therapeutics, nationally recognized as an authority in her field for science. All right, sounds pretty solid. Nadia Drake. I don't know if this is any relation to Frank, who we've just really...
It might be. Because they both went to Cornell.
Yeah, she is the one who is, she's a science writer. Writes for Scientific American, specializes in covering astronomy, astrophysics, planetary sciences, and jungles. She's won many awards for her work. in National Geographic. And on and on, holds a doctorate in genetics from Cornell. Mike Gold, Executive Vice President of Civil Space and External Affairs at Redwire in Jacksonville, Florida. Had leadership roles at NASA. Let's see, what else? Has led for NASA jointly with the Department of State the creation and execution of the Artemis Accords. There we go. There it is. We'll be talking about the Artemis Accords here in just a moment.
That's the thing that just looks dubious.
Yeah,
when you get into the Artemis Accords.
And the reason why, folks, is because what you find out when you dig into this stuff is that all of this points toward policy. It points toward
SDGs in space.
That, yes, the SDGs in space.
Sustainable Development Goals. Yep.
And these Artemis Accords and the other things that we'll talk about tonight, these are all policy efforts to create policy. Global governance. Let me just get to the point. It's global governance. It's not government. You're not going to be ruled by, or you're not going to be electing your officials, your leaders, your representatives. Global governance is where all of this points.
Selected for you. Yeah. From a distance. And, they're going to be keeping an eye on us.
Led the negotiation and adoption of binding international agreements for the Lunar Gateway, the creation of new planetary protocols, and the first purchase by NASA of a lunar resource. Okay, David Grinspoon. I'm going to scan it fast. He was awarded the Carl Sagan Medal by the American Astronomical Society, and he is an elected fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Okay, Scott Kelly. Hey, there you go, Scott Kelly. Now, Scott Kelly is a guy that flat earthers just can't stand. They just don't like this guy because he's so often the one that the media turns to explain what's going on in space. Commanded the ISS, expeditions 26, 45, and 46. Spent, I think is it Scott Kelly who spent more time in orbit than anybody could be. Let's see. We know Scott Kelly. He was the first pilot to fly the F-14 with the new digital flight control system. So he'll have the background in the fighter jets, I guess, is why he's there. Plus, he's Scott Kelly. Right? He's a heavy hitter. Matt Mountain. That name sounds familiar. Matt Mountain. Seems like that he's going to come up later in our research.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Matt Mountain. He is. Yeah.
Yep.
Warren Randolph, FAA. Walter Scott has held positions at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California, was president of Scott Consulting. 1992, he founded Digital Globe, which became part of Maxar in 2017. All right, Joshua Semeter. All right, so I've gone on too long with this part. So, at least we find one solid. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Two. Here's the second. Shelley Wright, Associate Professor of Physics at the University of California, San Diego Center for Astrophysics Space Studies, specializes in galaxies, supermassive black holes, and building optical and infrared instruments for telescopes using adaptive, blah, blah, blah. She is
and Joshua actually, because he's all about development of optical and magnetic sensor technologies, radar experiment design, and signaling processing. Yeah. So.
Oh, yes, Semeter up above.
Mm-hmm.
But look at Shelley Wright here.
Yeah.
She is a search for extraterrestrial intelligence researcher. She also with SETI.
Mm-hmm.
Researcher and instrumentalist. She's someone who would observe the equipment, listen in, calibrate, and operate the equipment. So at least a couple here who they got a dog in the fight here. They see the game in research. If you're involved in research, almost all research, The name of the game is funding. You have to get funded or you have to go get a job, a real job, a regular job. You have to go do something else. Nobody wants to do that. Everyone, it's like being in the major leagues. Everyone wants to stay in the party, as long as they can. So you got to keep funding coming in. It's like that in ministry too, as a matter of fact. If you can't find support and funding, you have to go get a real job, right? Well, anyway, so when you've got two folks here who are definitely people who benefit from funding, is there a conflict of interest here? Should you have someone who is dependent on funding for their research, and for their research to continue, see this research showing that yes, these things are extraterrestrial, they would benefit greatly from that. So that's why there could be a conflict of interest from there. All right, that just spent way too much time on that.
Well, yeah. So that's the unidentified aerial phenomenon team members that have just been elected as of October, right?
Yeah. These are the ones.
Those are the ones.
So last year, Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force released a report into 144. That's an interesting number, isn't it? Not 145, not 143, but 144 UFO incidents between 2004 and 2021, many of which were spotted by military pilots. All of a sudden, it's okay if you're a pilot to say you saw a UFO. Up until, 2010, 2015, you could lose your job if you said such a thing. Now it's okay. I wonder why that is. The narrative changed. It benefits the leaders, the globalists, the elites, let's just say. Although investigators concluded that there was no evidence the objects had come from outer space or a foreign adversary, they said that most could not be explained. And so the point here with all this is they're going to tell you that the protocols need updating. We need new rules. Currently, the only existing agreed contact protocols for encountering alien life were drawn up by SETI itself in 1989, and they have not been revised since 2010. But they focus entirely on scientific conduct. The Royal Society had a scientific discussion meeting on the detection of extraterrestrial life and the consequences for society and science in 2010, but there has been no global agreement on how to handle contact. Learning how to decipher an alien language or method of communication is likely to be one of the major hurdles that experts will need to consider. In a recent BBC documentary called First Contact, you're going to see the trailer, some clips from that in our video we're about to play for you. BBC documentary called First Contact, an Alien Encounter. Scientists admitted it may never be possible to understand what aliens are trying to tell us. So this is another problem with the extraterrestrial hypothesis, is that why would you assume that you could communicate with them? If that's your worldview and these civilizations, there's no reason to assume that you could even know that they're communicating with you. Why would we think that, if that's your worldview, why would you think that a civilization sufficiently advanced, to be 1,000 years ahead of us or 1,000,000 years, whatever, why don't they communicate telepathically? Why don't they communicate using who knows what? Why is it radio waves? Well, it's all we have. Humans are still searching for signs of intelligent alien life on other planets, but how would we react if we ever did make contact? According to many of our cultural touchstones, there's only one thing for it if extraterrestrials ever take a cosmic detour to our planet. And that would be heavy artillery fire. Typically, that's the idea. That would be the response. But from the sugary 1980s blockbuster E.T., the extraterrestrial, and the decades of Star Trek episodes to the books of Isaac Asimov and Ursula K. Le Guin, science fiction writers have long wrangled with the question, how would we really treat aliens? In popular culture, extraterrestrials are often cast as second-class citizens. Now pay attention to this. Listen to where this narrative goes when we're talking about governance. Extraterrestrials are often cast as second-class citizens or less than human. If it weren't for the intervention of E.T.'s human friend, the titular alien would have been cut open and on an operating room table. In the 2009 film District 9, millions of alien prawns are packed into South African slums. An allegory for human bigotry and cruelty in real life. So you see, social justice is the order of the day. Social justice for extraterrestrials as well. Any way that you can find to classify yourself or someone else as a minority of some kind. All right.
This reminds me of my headmaster who was a true believer, and she had a PhD in echeistics. I spoke about this on Matrix Override, and that's the study of all the ologies, psychology, sociology, anthropology, group dynamics, how human settlements get along with one another. And so basically she's...
Yeah, I remember that now. In Matrix Override, folks, if you've seen that.
Right, because this group is supposed to, when you read about what is this group going to do, it's how to decipher methods, enact space law, and anticipate societal impacts. So she actually told me at one point that, these meetings that she would go to once a year where she would meet with other scientists around the world, she said to me that they would sit there and brainstorm how to react if the aliens come. So this was when I was in high school, and she was a really smart woman, very deceived, sadly. She was a true believer, but she was involved very heavily with, obviously, this particular agenda that we would call Agenda 21. So it's been in the works for quite a long time, and I know firsthand, just from that experience, that this is real, and there are think tanks that sit around and talk about this. And they believe that they're involved in something incredible. They're not necessarily aware of the fact of all the deception around it. So,
which episode is that in? Do you remember?
That was the first episode. Was it? Yeah.
Excellent. We haven't seen that in so long.
But there you can see it. You can see it. I mean, it was like, I was just shocked, because at the time in high school too, I was like going to UFO meetings and I really believed in aliens. And I was like, and then she saw that I had this interest. She pulled me aside and took me into her office and talked to me about it. Like, we actually, I'm part of this team and I meet once a year and I go and we talk about how would the world react and what would this do to relations. And so,
yeah, I remember that now. That was.
So you see this happening now. They're putting it back into the mainstream consciousness. Like, okay, we're going to bring together this team, and they're going to talk about these issues. Or what would we do if an alien race came and joined us here on the planet? And we know that that's just one of those deceptions that we've all been kind of waiting for. Right, is the alien deception.
Yeah, it's everybody remember this? Me and my Illuminati handler? This is not the video I was talking about, but this one's good too. This one's better.
Very progressive.
What do you mean by progressive?
Well, first off, the school could only have a certain amount of people in it. It was 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. 75 people allowed max. That was done by design. The reason for that cap was never revealed, but it was revealed that it was done for a purpose, a very important purpose, and it was based on group dynamics and social dynamics. Student body would be responsible for governing itself see something, say something, leading in that direction. You know, the student body would police itself, and people really would call each other out. We'd have Monday morning meetings, and sometimes those meetings would go for hours, just however long it would take. If somebody was called out for something, and the rest of the student body would just demand justice.
What's wrong with group dynamics if that's how it works?
Well, for a small environment such as this, 75 people in a high school, honestly, for me, I enjoyed it. I felt that it kind of put me on track to follow the rules, I suppose. There weren't rows of seats. It was the students were against the wall, so it was just like the students were in a circle, essentially. So it was this idea of equality. Everybody got equal attention in a sense. Nobody's in front, nobody's behind. And the whole thought behind that was, just that nobody could hide from the teacher as well. With the way that this school was, it wanted to bring out your individuality. For example, I was actually super interested in UFOs and aliens and the Illuminati, Freemasonry. So I was actually encouraged, like, you're interested in that? Okay, you can write your term paper on it. So I started writing all of my term papers on these subjects. And then if you really got into something that you were interested in, everybody was pretty stoked about that. The teachers really encouraged that. That model, could be quite beneficial for just bringing out the potential in somebody. One thing that was quite revealing about the whole thing, this is the interesting part about it. At the time you're thinking, this is a place where I'm actually being celebrated, I can excel. Because of my interests in what I was writing about, what was interesting is I got to know on a deeper level the headmaster of the school, or the director of the school. And her background was, she was a freedom writer. She was part of the Black Panther movement. She wasn't African American. She was a white woman. She was heavily involved in this in the 60s. So she was a bit of a rebel herself. And one of the things that she had us do, some of the students, was to order our file from the government. She's like, order this file, send it here, and then I guarantee you when the file comes back, most of the information will be blacked out. So a few of us did that, and it came back, and sure enough, most of the file was blacked out, and it was quite interesting. And even interesting that, she was just instilling that sort of rebellion within us to sort of ask questions. So after noticing that I had this interest in aliens and the Illuminati and Freemasonry and uncovering all of this, she called me into her office one day, and she's asking me, why I was interested in this. And I said, I don't know, I just really feel like there's something to it. And she said, well, I have a PhD in echystics. It's basically the study of all the ologies: psychology, anthropology, sociology. It's the study of the ability of humans to cooperate with one another, how to improve communication between humans. And so she's like, I would go to this one area of the world every year and meet with all the top scientists to discuss how to improve relations. And then she said, for when the aliens come, we're trying to actually figure out how to improve cooperation and communications for when the aliens come. And that was really, obviously, as a 16-year-old, I was really blown away by that, and also the fact that she brought me into her office privately and sort of disclosed this to me, literally like she was confiding in me. This is not, she's like, can I just tell you something? And from then on out, I was quite close with her, and she really took me under her wing and taught me a lot because of my childhood as well, just how much my mom had taken me in and out of so many different schools. At times I had been labeled as ADHD. She told me, you know what, that's not accurate at all. You basically have just been uprooted a lot, and I don't see you as having that, and actually I don't even believe in that. That was a rewrite on the cellular level as well. So there was a lot that I wanted to believe in with that, and that I did for many years. I really thought I have so much respect and gratitude for this woman, but at the end of the day, I can see now that she was deceived, that she was a part of this program and this programming and this agenda and raising it up at the grassroots level, at the local level. And this is back in the mid-90s.
There's the Matrix.
Wow, we didn't even plan
moment.
that to bring that clip back in, but it really, it just jumps off the page when I look about this. The SETI post-detection hub, bringing together experts from around the world to decide how to decipher methods, enact space law, and anticipate societal impacts. And I'm like, that's Lorraine. That's my headmaster.
Oh, here, I think we're talking about echistics right here.
Yeah, you just played it.
Clinton kept us in, and we've been with it ever since.
Oh, yeah.
We went a little bit deeper into it. But yeah, you guys can check out that episode if you want.
Yeah. It's over on Armor of Truth channel, but you know. Yeah, so that's cool. That, folks, that is the absolutely the first work that we did together, that Summer and I did together when
our first video.
Yeah, this was I remember it was good memories there doing that video.
It was fun.
A lot of time laughing doing that. So yeah, I encourage you. This is that's actually Summer's testimony. It's her testimony, and it's ongoing. It's, you know, she's not finished with it yet. She's still alive, and testimony is still being created. Okay, so there's that. Let's now go into this clip, this video where right after this we're going to get right here. We're going to go to this timeline, and we're going to show you since we spent 2 hours building this case against extraterrestrial.
Yeah, here comes the meaty part.
Yeah, after this video we're going to play for you now, we're going to get into this timeline, and then show you. Yeah, no, of course, now you know extraterrestrials, they don't exist, right? At least not in the way that these people are looking for them.
Hollywood's aliens, no.
Yeah. So everything you're hearing is a scam. Every single thing you're hearing about out there about aliens and UAPs and investigations and whatever. Pentagon says this, releases that. It's all a scam, but meant to push everybody toward, obviously, a global mindset, be a global citizen, tear down the borders, and
ye shall be as gods, right? Because you really pump people up like, oh, look at what we can do. We can stop at nothing, you know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, because ultimately
it's narcissism.
Yeah, autonomy. We are the power. You know, we are the creators in the universe. That's the worldview here. So we'll be back to go over this with you, bit by bit, on each one of these. You can see, look, right from the beginning of this UN Office for Outer Space Affairs in 1958. Now, the United Nations didn't exist yet, but the organization that did exist created this, which is today. You'll see. What is this today? What does this agency exist to do? Outer space affairs. Well, you'll see. They're not involved with outer space anything. The Outer Space Treaty. And look, right here, 1980, the Georgia Guidestones were unveiled. 1992, Earth Summit, Agenda 21, the term Sustainable Development is born. Paris Climate Accords. March 2020, World Health Organization declares a global pandemic. 2020, in April, Pentagon releases Navy UFO videos. October 2020, the Artemis Accords. This has to do with policy, off-world policy. And 2022, now we don't have Space Force and things like that in here, but it could be. We didn't have room on this timeline. But July of 2022, Georgia Guidestones bombed and then dismantled. So those commandments that were created were destroyed this year. And then October of this year, NASA fields the team to study UFOs. And in November of this year, COP27 announced the new 10 Commandments. Now, this is what Summer picked up on. And I won't take credit for this. That was her.
My radar went up.
Yeah, her spidey senses were up there, and she got that one. And that's an excellent point. So we'll be back in just a moment, just a few minutes, to talk about all of this and all the implications for what does this space narrative, this alien narrative, really, what are they really doing? What's it really about? And so please enjoy this clip.
The scientific basis for extraterrestrial life is so clear.
Every telescope in the world is going to turn to that location and start gathering data.
If there is a signal out there, we're getting closer and closer and closer to it.
Signal did indeed come from space. Signal did indeed come from come from space.
People think that space is a quiet and desolate vacuum, vast realm of nothingness. However, traveling throughout the cosmos are a variety of signals. Many of these signals are stars, quasars, and other celestial phenomena. Yet some of these signals, perhaps many of them, are extraterrestrial beings talking to each other, and perhaps talking to us.
This array of antennas, situated in the Cascade Mountains of Northern California, it's searching for evidence of intelligent extraterrestrials, aliens. Known as SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It is a daring experiment that could forever alter humanity's view of itself. An experiment to use modern technology to find other galactic inhabitants was first attempted by a soft-spoken astronomer named Frank Drake. In 1955, he entered Harvard as a radio astronomy grad student. After receiving his degree, the young Frank Drake joined the newly minted National Radio Astronomy Observatory in the Soft Hills of West Virginia. What followed was a 2-month observing program he christened Project Ozma after the fictional Princess Oz in Frank Baum's book. He wasn't studying natural processes, but looking for emissions launched into space by an extraterrestrial society. He didn't find any alien signals, but Project Ozma had generated a tidal wave of interest. The meeting was held in the fall of 1961. As agenda for the meeting, he wrote a simple equation on a blackboard that would estimate the number of on-the-air societies that exist in our galaxy. This agenda, now known as the Drake equation, has been called the second most famous equation in science. Thus began the modern era of SETI that has sprouted into several signal searches in progress today. SETI is run on monies donated by a handful of interested individuals. SETI experiments have not yet found proof of extraterrestrials, but a small number of scientists are continuing the search with new observation programs and the development of new receiving equipment. By 2035, these experiments will have reconnoitered about 1 million planetary systems, an impressive sample. So it's conceivable that Drake's audacious experiment will soon pay off, that we will learn that humans are not the only intelligent species in the cosmos, that we share the universe with others.
In 1966, Time magazine ran a cover story asking, "Is God dead?" Many have accepted the cultural narrative that God is obsolete, that as science progresses, there is less need for a God to explain the universe. Yet it turns out that the rumors of God's death were premature. More amazing is that the relatively recent case for his existence comes from a surprising place: science itself. The same year Time featured the now famous headline, the astronomer Carl Sagan announced that there were 2 important criteria for a planet to support life. 1, the right kind of star, and 2, a planet the right distance from that star. Given the roughly octillion, that is 1 followed by 27 zeros, planets in the universe, there should have been about septillion, 1 followed by 24 zeros, planets capable of supporting life. With such spectacular odds, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, a large, expensive collection of private and publicly funded projects launched in the 1960s, was sure to turn up something soon. Scientists listened with a vast radio telescopic network for signals that resembled coded intelligence and were not merely random. But as years passed, the silence from the rest of the universe was deafening. Congress defunded SETI in 1993, but the search continues with private funds. As of the year 2014, researchers have discovered precisely bupkis. That is 0, followed by nothing. What happened? As our knowledge of the universe increased, it became clear that there were far more factors necessary for life than Sagan supposed. His 2 parameters grew to 10, then to 20, then to 50, and so the number of potentially life-supporting planets decreased accordingly. The number dropped to a few thousand planets and kept on plummeting. Even SETI proponents acknowledged the problem. Peter Schenkel wrote, in light of new findings and insights, "We should quietly admit that the early estimates may no longer be tenable." As factors continued to be discovered, the number of possible planets hit 0 and kept going. In other words, the odds turned against any planet in the universe supporting life, including this one. Probability said that even we shouldn't be here. Today, there are more than 200 known parameters necessary for a planet to support life, every single one of which must be perfectly met or the whole thing falls apart. The odds against life in the universe are simply astonishing. Yet, here we are. What can account for it? Can every one of those many parameters have been met perfect by accident? At what point is it fair to admit that science suggests that we cannot be the result of random forces, that a life-sustaining Earth just happened to beat the inconceivable odds to come into being? The fine-tuning necessary for life to exist on a planet is nothing compared with the fine-tuning required for the universe to exist at all. Alter any one value, and the universe could not exist. And the odds against the universe existing are so heart-stoppingly astronomical that the notion that it all just happened defies common sense. It would be like tossing a coin and having it come up heads 10 quintillion times in a row. Fred Hoyle, the astronomer who coined the term Big Bang, said that his atheism was greatly shaken at these developments. He later wrote that a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with the physics, as well as with chemistry and biology. The numbers one calculates from the facts seem to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion almost beyond question. Theoretical physicist Paul Davies has said, "The appearance of design is overwhelming." And Oxford professor John Lennox has said, "The more we get to know about our universe, the more the hypothesis that there is a creator gains credibility as the best explanation of why we're here." The greatest miracle of all time, without any close seconds, is the universe. It is the miracle of all miracles, one that ineluctably points with the combined brightness of every star to something or someone beyond itself.
All right. Well, what do we all think about that? That was the second part of that video was from a video that I did that was based on Eric Metaxas' article from, gosh, when was that thing? Back in the 90s, I suppose. I don't remember when it was. He wrote that article many years ago as a response to, it was an apologetics piece. And it was back in the beginning of all this work. And I just thought it was a really excellent response to the
the atheist secular mindset, showing that plainly. Look, there's no the evidence. If you believe, if you are looking for evidence, and if you trust the evidence, you follow the evidence where it leads. The evidence leads to
You
nothing.
with that
I know,
hair.
there's.
I could see that one hair there. I think everybody's chuckling with me.
Yeah, it's just in my face. See, I got up during that clip and just took a little stroll around the studio here to stretch my legs, and I don't know, something happened.
You got a cobweb.
Yeah, it might have been a cobweb. Well, nobody knows how to interpret, they say, the article that we have here for Smithsonian Magazine about the Georgia Guidestones. They say nobody knows how to interpret that thing and those commandments.
Yeah, and this article's from 2013, so it's pretty interesting how they frame it.
Yeah. But we'll get to the Georgia Guidestones in just a moment. But we're talking about, ultimately, this is about what's happening at COP27 now with these new 10 commandments. Summer, what's this place?
Mount Sinai.
Yeah, have you been there?
Yes.
What do you know about Mount Sinai?
Well, I visited there in 1998, and I stayed there in that very place at the base. And you get up at 1 o'clock and you ride a camel 3/4 of the way up, and then the rest of the way you're going up carved stairs, and it's the place where Moses got the 10 Commandments. You watch the sunrise. It's beautiful. It's really, really amazing.
Quite an experience for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly is a place that for us anyway, for humanity anyway, it's charged with sacred meaning, and for all all of the three major world religions, this is an important site. But for only one of those religions is their story true. But what we see here, what's going on, is a new term. We have a new term today: eco-theology. Eco-theology. It's a lot like liberation theology, except the planet is the one that's oppressed. So now, over in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, right now, the one world religion is on full display as fake faith leaders join globalist predators to push earth worship. That's what's going on here at COP27. Climate hysteria. Earth worship. These are a key component of the coming one world religion. And it's on full display this week in Egypt at this conference. If you look at the COP27 logo there, what do you see? That logo says it all. Or it says a lot. It depicts the African sun above, and below, you can see those symbols, right? Embraces the ancient Egyptian Aten, the Aten's sun symbol below. And what that implies is it's giving rise to a new horizon. Let's see, can I make that a little larger? I don't think we have an example of this. Goodness, what is the deal here? Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. There we go. There you go. That worked out well. Look at that. And so they're not shy about this. They're instituting a new world religion, a new horizon, and that
that New Horizon has on it a new world religion. So we see at COP27 conference that this hierarchy of the world's major religions, they're all willing to sacrifice their own religious principles for the higher religion of earth worship. So you can see even the Christians who are in attendance here, they've gone apostate. They've turned their back on their faith. You cannot be involved in ministry endeavors or prayer or worship with others who don't, of other faiths, those who worship false gods or idols. You can't do it. It's an abomination. But they're all willing to sacrifice their principles for this higher religion of earth worship, this social gospel. More than 100 faith leaders have traveled to COP27, to this conference, to join with business and political leaders and give the conference an air of spirituality. Ultimately, the climate agenda is about bringing the middle class, Western world to its knees. And I know for those of you watching, I know that's me. I don't know, middle class. I think we're probably something under that, but pretty much we're all considered middle class. It's a pretty wide range of, not many of us are struggling so bad in this country. We've had it so well for so long. We've become soft, right? And I think that this nation's under judgment because we're not faithful. But that's what the climate agenda is about. Bringing the Western world to its knees. And that could only happen. The United States could only be brought to its knees, could only be brought down if the people had turned their back on God, the one who had provided freedom and prosperity for the existence of the nation. What they want to do is make formerly free citizens comply with every new dictate, whatever it is. Whether it's a dietary dictate, you'll eat bugs and be happy, or restrictions on speech, restrictions on your farming, obviously restrictions on freedom of movement, restrictions on your freedom to assemble, restrictions on your freedom to worship. Unless you want to worship with this thing. Globalists know that they cannot get the majority of people to accept this newly ordered sustainable lifestyle, or the new normal, as they call it, without a type of religious fervor. So they also need a few good crises thrown in there, and the more catastrophic and scary, the better. But the green agenda, the climate hysteria, it is inherently irrational. So what do the globalists do when the people wake up? What do the globalists do when they see that there are a lot of people pushing back? There's a lot of protests. People in the streets. They know this. They see this. What do the globalists do when not enough people comply with their anti-human climate agenda? Well, because their system, their proposed system, because climate change is inherently irrational, the globalists, or the ones who actually are in charge, they have to have a truly crazy ace up their sleeve, ready to play when the time is right. Ultimately, everything that you're hearing from the media and on the internet about the alien presence or the UAP or UFO investigations, as I've said several times, is absolute propaganda. But the narrative is another way, all it is. The Pentagon releasing the videos, the formation of these teams to study the phenomenon, and these teams coming together to form responses and policies to how do we respond when we finally do make contact. This narrative is just another way to compel the Sustainable Development Goals, which are just the new infrastructure and governance for a multipolar global communitarian world order. They incorporate their ideological agenda into religious dogma and utilize the perceived mystery of extraterrestrial life to push forward the plan. You can see the new religion unfolding right here. Now, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it sure does. For now, this is it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm reading the PDF. It's about from this event, and it's just, it's stating that the world's major religions are to gather on Mount Sinai to engage in the first ever climate repentance ceremony and to put forth a prophetic interreligious call to action, climate justice, 10 universal commandments.
10 universal commandments, and you can bet that they're all of these evil components are coming together to map out what they hope is the final destruction of freedom. Final destruction of freedom on this planet. That means political freedom, economic, medical freedom, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. Of course, they'll tell you, they'll promise you that you can worship as you like. It's okay. You can still worship Jesus. However, our God, Mother Earth, is ahead.
Yeah, repent to the earth, but don't repent in general. Don't repent to your heavenly Father.
That is definitely your adversary, Satan, telling you to do that, right? To go to this place and repent for your climate crimes.
Mm-hmm. And think about that. That's about the Georgia Guidestones. It's just those sounded just like something out of the SDG playbook. So,
oh yeah. Well, let's go ahead. I'm gonna hurry up and get to that because that's really a good point.
Mm-hmm.
According to a November 7th article in Israel 365, global religious leaders are gathering in Sinai to receive what they call the Climate Justice 10 Commandments. There will be 40,000 attendees in Sinai this week.
Why not 33,000?
Well, why not 6 million? Anyway, as well as leaders in business and other sectors, Christian, Muslim, Jew, and other religious figures will participate in a UN conference on climate change that's taking place this week and next in conjunction with the United Nations event. There'll be a group of faith leaders who will, they're going to take an alternative approach, seeking a faith-based solution to the ecological crisis by promoting these 10 principles or commandments for climate justice in a global initiative. So we're going to have that list, I'm sure, by next week we'll have that one that we can look at. It's not going to be that different, right? I have an example here for you tonight of what it's probably going to look like in a great deal. But the Multi-Faith Initiative here is led by the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development, the ICSD. It's also led by something called the Elijah Interfaith Institute. It's also led by the Peace Department. Right? When they say peace, they don't mean it. And this is part of the 27th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That is the COP27. And it goes on through November 18th.
Right, and they're also stating that one of the key goals of the event is to generate new faith-based education. To generate new faith-inspired climate education.
Faith-inspired climate education.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that's confused, isn't it?
Yeah. Just try to shove it all in together.
Yeah.
New faith-inspired climate education.
But why Mount Sinai? We mentioned it earlier, but well, it's a place of revelation, Mount Sinai. And it's a place of revelation in the collective consciousness of all three of the major world religions. The Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims, and others. But it's a site for turning to God. This is from the article. They say it's a site for turning to God and receiving God's message. It came from the press release. So on Sunday, day after tomorrow, the organization will hold this climate repentance ceremony. And they will put forth a prophetic interreligious call to action. And these partnering organizations initially intended to do this climate repentance ceremony and the 10 Commandments events at Jebel Musa in the southern Sinai Peninsula, but they couldn't do it. It was too risky. The Egyptian government would not allow this for security reasons.
Some of them will do it, but most of them won't be able to. Only the very important VIPs.
A small group will do it, but for the most part, they're going to be meeting in London where they can do it, which is just as good if you're talking about, if you want to find a really important place, a place that really symbolizes, the new world order. Likewise, there'll be concurrent faith-based events held all around the world, in synchronized. They've also urged houses of worship. They have to say houses of worship because they mean mosques, synagogues, churches, whatever. Yurts. If you have a sacred yurt somewhere or sweat lodge, you're invited too. Because there is no doctrine here at all. There is a doctrine. It's the Sustainable Development Goals. That's the doctrine. And they want to join in at the same time on Sunday with prayer and study focused on this transformative moment to protect our environment. How confused and misled these people really are. Now, Rabbi Yonatan, or it would be Jonathan, but Yonatan Naril, the founder and executive director of the Interfaith Center, said, "Some people believe religion is separate and distinct from ecology or care for God's creation. Were it not for the receiving of the Hebrew Bible on Mount Sinai, Jewish tradition teaches that God would have returned the world to chaos and void. Applying the teachings of the Hebrew Bible to stewardship of God's creation is not just an idea for today, but essential for a future in which we achieve a balanced worldwide ecosystem and thrive on a planet viable for all life." So there's the climate gospel. Just like in America now and other places, we're seeing the social justice gospel where tolerance and inclusivity are what make you faithful, are what save you, are what put you right with God, being tolerant and inclusive, right? Having no doctrine is what gets you right with God. Same thing here with the climate gospel. So among climate experts and environmental activists, there's some who claim that the destructive process of climate change is irreversible, says the article. But Rabbi Naril noted that the Bible teaches otherwise. He says, many people fear that humans have irrevocably destroyed the ecology of Eden on earth, but God created the world out of love for life on earth. He says we need to change the operating system that humanity generated and is degrading God's creation. We need to change the operating system. What's he talking about? What does he mean by we need to change the operating system that humanity generated? Right? That's ultimately freedom, liberty, capitalism, free markets can't exist. That operating system has to go. We need a totalitarian operating system. They won't call it that. It'll be communitarian. He says we need to switch from greed and short-term thinking and individualistic behavior to spiritual satisfaction. Right? That's the goal. It's going to be about spiritual satisfaction. You're going, you'll own nothing and be happy, right? Because that's spiritual satisfaction. He says long-term thinking and altruism is our goal. Now, altruism, that's doing good for others. That entails some kind of value judgment. What is a good act? What is a good deed? They'll tell you what the good deeds are. And he believes that by doing all of this, they will address the symptoms of the problem and manifest a new earth. And he finishes up saying, may God help us. Well, yeah, that's true. May God be merciful on you. Because what he's saying here is this idea of Blavatsky and Bailey, the Seven Mountain Mandate, the Word Faith, New Apostolic Reformation, this eschatology they have. This is bringing heaven to earth, the immanentizing of the eschaton. So Rabbi Naril sees faith and religion as playing essential roles in this solution. He says leveraging faith communities to move the needle around climate advocacy is a deeply needed and worthwhile effort. While the national political culture is so divided, he says faith is this common ground that can soften the boundaries and open hearts and minds. Common ground. As long as no doctrine. So anyway, we got a rabbi at the COP, at the COP27, talking about a need for a new operating system for humanity and how we need to open our hearts and minds to the new age earth-worshiping religion. This is Leo Hohmann wrote this part. His choice of words regarding the operating system is interesting. We know what that means. We've just mentioned it. It's freedom. It's capitalism. Tyrants need only two things to take over. They need our compliance and they need soldiers. The second one, the soldiers, we have no control over that. These are the cops and the military personnel who follow illegal, unconstitutional orders and lockdowns and things like that from evil dictators. And they do it just for a paycheck. But the first one, Leo Hohmann says, non-compliance, that one is totally within our realm of control. He says, so let's stay vigilant in resolving to disobey every illegal, unbiblical dictate and propaganda talking point coming out of this four-pronged beast system. Pray to God that He give us more time in which our people can repent and reorder their lives back into sync with God's wishes, not the world's. Now, the only thing I would disagree with there with Leo is God's will be done. This might be God's will for this to happen, for this to be going on. God hasn't lost control. We don't need to win this battle against the globalists for God. It's not. He's in charge of that. In the middle of our trials, God is there. In the middle of our good times and successes, God is there. What we need to do is be faithful, fulfill the Great Commission. That's our goal. Okay, now, so you see the timeline that we have here for you, and you can see a theme here. It starts out here with the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs being formed in 1958. 1967, we have the Outer Space Treaty. So let's look at this United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. What do you think it is? What do you think this office is? Right? It's the Office for Outer Space Affairs. Clearly, this is right. Are they preparing for aliens? What are they doing? What are they about here? Well, you can see there at the top, one of the lines there. Space for SDGs. Space for Sustainable Development Goals. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality. Well, these are the 17 goals. So they're there also. They're there just to push the Sustainable Development Goals. Right. Our work here. Let's
And they're the ones that are meddling in everything, and everyone has to answer to them.
Right. So they deal in something called space law. Right. The treaties and principles. That's what we were talking about earlier. That was going on at that SETI post-detection hub. They were going to get together and talk about and create some treaties, some principles. Now, all of these treaties, all of these policies simply have to do with climate change. This is just a shell operation. Let's look down here and just see what you can see on this site here. Space technology and its applications play an important role in supporting the 17 Sustainable Development Goals established under the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. See, they let go of that Agenda 21 a long time ago. That one got called out fast, so they use a different name. Just like global warming changed to climate change. They're always having to update. Space 4 SDGs highlights how outer space can be used for monitoring and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. They can monitor the SDGs, and they can also monitor
you.
That's right. They're all about surveillance, aren't they? Access to space for all. Here we go with the social gospel again. Access to space for all enables communities from all over the world to use and benefit from space technologies and applications thanks to the cooperation among established space actors.
Appropriate.
Yeah, what in the world? United Nations and non- or emerging space entities. Space for global health. Space applications provide innovative tools to improve global health care. And the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs helps all countries access this potential. And the UNUSA's annual reports describe the office's work in promoting international cooperation in the peaceful use and exploration of space and in the use of space science and technology for sustainable economic and social development. So this goes on and on. You see what we're dealing with here. This is not something that is in any way, its name is deceptive, is the point we're making here. All right, let's move down the line to our, let's see here, to our next. Let me get my timeline and keep the timeline here with us. So you also saw something there called the COPUOS, the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, set up by the General Assembly in 1959. See how old these entities are? 1959, to govern the exploration and use of space for the benefit of all humanity, for peace, security, and development. The committee was tasked with reviewing international cooperation in peaceful uses of outer space, studying space-related activities to be undertaken. It was instrumental in the creation of the 5 treaties and 5 principles of outer space. Treaties, principles, governance. Don't be fooled. The principles for outer space are going to be the principles for here on the earth as well. International cooperation in space exploration and the use of space technology applications to meet global development goals. Those are sustainable development goals. This is what they discuss every year. Okay, now next, when we're talking about policies, talking about these sustainable development goals, these are, this is a type of commandments. There's 17 commandments. This is the doctrine, right? They do have a doctrine, and this is it. And that is the structure for this new multipolar world order. And so we saw in 1972, the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. We also saw the club in 72, the Club of Rome released its Limits to Growth paper. Now, if you want to learn more about that, Club of Rome. You can check out our Armor of Truth Live number 171, Masonic Darwinism. That was a good one. I just like that title. I'd never heard that before. Masonic Darwinism. In this, we talk about the immanentizing of the eschaton, how they instill the fear of the end of the world on people, while at the same time while aiming to bring heaven to earth, create a utopia. Obsession with the end of the world is a sure symptom of having a flawed or incomplete worldview. The rejection of absolute truth, objective morality, and a maniacal fixation on power combined with a very real, if even suppressed, fear of the creator of the world is the syndrome we see present in those who currently believe they control the world. For years, I've been watching the world leaders back policies and programs that are intentionally destroying the environment with geoengineering, chemtrails, genetically modifying the food, creating super pathogenic bioweapons, and overall pushing unrealistic fears about the climate, all of which are manufactured and create a context for them to compel austerity upon the masses. The demoralization of the United States from within has been staggering. In the last 20 years alone, we have seen a shocking plunge into depravity where moral relativism and expressive individualism are so normalized that people now believe a corrupt, authoritarian regime in Central Europe is some kind of heroic model of righteousness. These lost leaders are also creating false narratives and squelching objectivity in order to provoke the world to want war. The jig is up. There's nothing hidden here. It's been done to create a context or justification for grabbing more unprecedented powder. Not only unprecedented power, not powder. I'm sure there's some unprecedented powder involved too. But they're also, of course, as we've shown you tonight, they're pushing the alien agenda, the end of the world and the alien agenda all to one. And this is where we get the Ten Commandments idea. This is where we come on to the Guidestones. So, for those of you who don't know, the Georgia Guidestones, located in Elbert County, Georgia. They were put there in 1979, unveiled in 1980, and on them there are a set of 10 guidelines. Let me take you through these photos here because this is kind of fun. Summer myself, we went to the Georgia Guidestones while they were still standing. This was
our Valentine's Day.
That's right.
This was our Valentine's Day. 2021, February.
That's right. Our first Valentine's Day together. We spent it at the Georgia Guidestones. All right, like a
match
real
made in heaven.
Yeah, come on now. People out there, guys are not real truthers at all. Come on, man. Valentine's Day at the Guidestones, you can't get more truther than that.
We were really excited to go.
It was fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It happened to be just an awful day with the rain, but we didn't really notice it. We had a great time.
We did.
It was very soggy. And you can see Guidestones Road.
Yeah, that is a road.
Yeah, that's real. And you can see the lovely Summer there, standing in front of beside the English panel. There we both are. And the time capsule, I don't know what they've done with that. They took it out of the ground.
Well, they said that nothing was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, right. Like they dug it out and nothing was there. I don't really believe that, but.
Once again, Summer, why don't you tell everyone what your hypothesis here was about these Guidestones coming down, and then this week we're getting these new.
Yeah, well, when I saw the whole thing happen in the media, I just immediately thought that it was like done on purpose, especially if it was any sort of investigation. Why would they just knock them down the same day? It made no sense. So it's kind of like, well, let's make it look like it's some sort of radical Christian, who thinks that it's a Satanist thing, and just made it look ridiculous and sensational. And they wanted to get rid of him. And so I'm thinking that, you can't have 2 copies of the 10 Commandments existing on the planet. So you need to knock this one out, and then they need to update it with this new one that they're coming out with right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, for me, it's like so obvious. To me, it's just plain as day. They needed to update the commandments.
Well, why don't we talk about what those commandments are? Here's some video of the...
Of course, it's speculation, but I'm pretty sold.
That was a pretty powerful explosion when you think about it.
It was.
That was...
Yeah.
I mean, and you see a silver car drive away, and...
Well, and plus we know too that we saw like their cameras literally everywhere.
Yeah, looking at one of them here.
So I just think it's highly suspect that they wouldn't have been able to locate that person.
Yeah.
And also give better angles. And then again, like it just doesn't make sense that they would just level it within hours.
Darren Johns here says of that silver car, says that's just God driving away. The ways of the Lord are many, he says.
I think they just they wanted to get rid of that one and get a new one out. Yeah. What do you think, Brad?
I agree with you.
Okay.
I don't think there is, it's not, I don't want to be too cynical, but I don't think there's a coincidence here. I believe that these coming down, and in the same year, you meet at COP27 to unveil these new commandments. That's just a little too convenient.
Well, yeah, and they just have to latch everything to crazy Christians. The narrative of unbalanced crazy Christians.
Yeah, the fundies, the fundamentalists.
So it has, as with all of their operations, they have multiple prongs.
Well, what the commandments there say, and there are 10 of them: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Guide reproduction wisely. So that guide means control, right?
CRISPR babies.
Manage, right? Yeah, guide it. Control who can be born.
Mm-hmm.
And
surrogate mothers.
Yeah, which is really strange today in Hollywood. I guess it's more than places than that where women are just not even carrying their babies. We saw this crazy thing with Dave Rubin and his husband, I guess his homosexual partner, where they were going to have 2 children, 2 different surrogates, one woman donating the eggs, and this is eugenics, no question. The 3rd commandment on there is unite humanity with a living new language. A living new language.
They're definitely in the process of doing that.
Well, yeah, by destroying the one that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Number 4 is rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 5 is protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts.
Says who?
There's a value judgment. Yeah, according to what standard? Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. So they're not really.
And it will be a world court if they get their way.
Yeah, they're not really ruling internally if ultimately these disputes are going to all end up in the world court. But number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. That's one I can get down with there. I can agree with that one. Petty laws and useless officials.
Well, except that, they're getting rid of us as the middlemen.
Right. So, yeah, how do they define petty laws? They would probably see, the constitutional provision for the God-given, right? God's law is probably a petty law for them in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the useless official, according to them, would probably be the pastor.
Number 8 is balance personal rights with social duties. There you go.
The hive mind.
Imagine there's no heaven. I mean, that is as communist as it gets. Balance personal rights.
Group dynamics, group think.
Social duties. Now, that's not, let me just be clear. That's not inherently wrong to balance your personal rights with social duties. Once again, though, it depends on who decides what are the social duties, who decides by what standard are you working to. Because what this looks like in our world is, those is no freedoms. And your social duties will be dictated to you.
Well, did you get the job?
Right. You don't have bodily autonomy anymore. That's a personal right that you need to balance with your social duties. That's what communitarianism is. Number 8 there is all about communitarianism. That's what it is. When the rights of the individual are balanced with the needs of the community. In fact, the individual doesn't have rights in communitarianism. The community is given rights. This is how gun control will work. They don't have to ban guns. Guns are not allowed in this community. And that's how it will work. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. So this is religious, right? People always said, these are secular rules. No, what is the infinite? This is their idea of the source or whatever. Again, you can see, as we said earlier with Frank Drake, you can see the image of God at work here. They know, as Summer pointed out so well earlier, they know there's more. But they suppress the truth and unrighteousness.
And it's a religion, and this is the counterfeit. This is the new religion.
And the last one is, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. And for effect, one more time, leave room for nature.
So live in your stack 'em, pack 'em smart city.
The article says Van Smith, one of the monument's most prominent conspiracy theorists, says that these rules, these commandments, are for establishing the beginnings of a totalitarian tribal government. Well, the people who put the stones up there said what this was to be able to guide Guidestones, to be able to guide the creating of a new civilization if a catastrophe was to happen. Well, the Guidestones couldn't survive long enough to do their job. Alex Jones says that these stones are a call for culling humanity, culling human beings. Many people hate the stones. Randall Sullivan of Wired visited the stones in 2009. They had been vandalized with a phrase that said, "Death to the New World Order." Not only were the stones supposed to give messages, but the arrangement was meant to be a Stonehenge-like astronomical device. Now, here's the last point on this one before we move on. This is what's interesting about this. The astrological specifications when this was built, the man who was responsible for getting the work done, said they were so complex that they had to get an astronomer from the University of Georgia to help make it, to help build it. The 4 outer stones were to be oriented based on the limits of the sun's yearly migration. The center column needed 2 precisely calibrated features, a hole through which the North Star would be visible at all times, and a slot that was to align with the position of the rising sun during the solstices and equinoxes. The principal component of the capstone was a 7/8 inch aperture through which a beam of sunlight would pass at noon each day, shining on the center stone to indicate what day of the year it was. However, did it work? Was it really that? Did it match up to Stonehenge? Astronomers today, when interviewed about this, have said that these astronomical features on the Guidestones are very crude, more like an abacus compared to Stonehenge's computer. They said the monument has a devoted community dedicated to figuring out just what the mysterious rocks are for. And the quest will probably never end. This article was written before it all came to an
So
end.
yeah, I mean, it sounds exactly like the UN people, you know. Reed Roman said, did you show the illuminated pyramids that kicked off the COP27 ceremony?
No, I haven't seen that.
We did not show that.
Haven't seen that. Let's see.
They had the all-seeing eye symbol 3/4 of the way up from the pyramid, not yet the capstone. Counterfeits.
What kind of ceremony? I forgot. What do you call it? The opening ceremony or something?
Illuminated pyramids that kicked off the COP27 ceremony.
Let's take a look. Let's see.
We'll look for that real quick.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's see what's going on here, because here it is, opening ceremony from 5 days ago. We can slip through here. Let's see what we have here. A lot of talking, a lot of talking about governance and how we need to save the earth here. Yeah, you can see there's the. All right, so it's not in this video.
No, we'll check it out though. We'll definitely check it out. It's all there. I mean, I think need we say more, really?
Together for implementation. Let's see if there's a lot of speeches. Here we go. Let's see what we got here. Just run through here one more time, see if we can find it. Appreciate Reed Romans bringing that up too. If we can. Who is that? Who's speaking here? That's him. There's Al Gore. There's Al Gore rhythm. He's got to be there, right?
Reed Roman said that she mirrored it. If you go to her channel.
Good work. I already have to go over here and change it. I'm looking for a channel. Oh boy.
That's her.
Where? At the top?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. There you go. Well done, Reed Romans. Here we go. Let's get some. Look at this. Must act now. That's the same message that we got from the SETI. The SETI guys who said, we have to come up with these policies now. We have to do it now because we could make contact with Alien Smart. Good job there, Reed Romans. That's exactly.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's good. That's what it looks like when you crowdsource the info. Good job. All right, so Guidestones unveiled. They were brought down in July of 2022. Earth Summit Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. That's when we first heard that term, 1992. And we had obviously in March 11th, is that right? Summer of 2020?
Yeah, March 11th. The official announcement of the pandemic.
Global pandemic was announced. The reason this is important to do this is just listen to the rhetoric. Listen to what's being said here.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak that started in China and is now spreading throughout the world. Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic. We have been in frequent contact with our allies, and we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the American people. This is the most aggressive and comprehensive effort to confront a foreign virus in modern history. I am confident that by counting and continuing to take these tough measures, we will significantly reduce the threat to our citizens, and we will ultimately and expeditiously defeat this virus. From the beginning of time, nations and people have faced unforeseen challenges, including large-scale and very dangerous health threats. This is the way it always was and always will be. It only matters how you respond, and we are responding with great speed and professionalism. Our team is the best anywhere in the world. At the very start of the outbreak, we instituted sweeping travel restrictions on China and put in place the first federally mandated quarantine in over 50 years.
Yeah, that's great news, right? And later on, months after this, he would be responsible for
fast tracking.
Yeah. Warp speed. Can't say a lot about it and don't want to say a lot about it here on YouTube. These things doesn't go well when we mention those things, but you know what happened. And what was interesting about that was, as I was watching that clip earlier today, he was under a lot of pressure. He is stiff. He's uncomfortable. I don't, I know how people feel about Trump, and I don't play one side or the other here, but for some reason, in this delivery here, this is as uncomfortable and measured as you've ever seen the guy. He was under a lot of pressure here with this. Either he didn't want to be doing this, or I don't know. I don't know what to say. He did end up doing all of it, but it's just interesting. It's just a really strange time in our country, in the world. It was definitely surreal. And then after that time there, these things are all playing together. So after the global pandemic, then we get right on the heels of that, the next month. A month later, we get Pentagon releases the Navy UFO videos.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
And so just, right on time. You got to have the fear of the thing that's coming that you can't see it. You can't see it, that phantom menace. And I heard Jason Lyle, he's a scientist. He's a Christian. He's a Reformed Christian, actually. But he was talking about, he was on Justin Peters a year ago talking about these clips. And it's just because these guys are fighter pilots or whatever, none of this is doing you any good. It's propaganda. It's all pointing to the same thing. And one of those is, here we go. It's time for the Artemis Accords. Let's check this out. Summer, what do you know about the Artemis Accords to start us off with here? I've got the website here. So
it's a bilateral space cooperation agreement. And a bunch of countries just signed it in October. And it's very much laced with all of the terminology that we know and love with sustainability. So if you go into the link, nasa.gov, and look at the accords, you'll see things like United Nations you need to give due consideration to United Nations guidelines for the long-term sustainability of outer space activities adopted by the COPUOS in 2019. So with appropriate changes to reflect the nature of operations beyond low Earth orbit. So you'll just see scattered throughout this document with, that's a document that people have signed around the world that everybody has to adhere to these terms and conditions. If you want to get out in outer space and you want to be out there and you want to explore, you need to sign this agreement and you need to be held accountable for all of these points.
Yeah, now on the surface, it looks like, well, this is just setting certain standards so that we can all work together in exploring and achieving these goals, and that's part of it, interoperability, but emergency assistance, things like that, registration of space. It's about ownership, too. It's definitely about that, but right here at the top, you see that, this is strange, through Artemis, NASA aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon, heralding a new era for space exploration and utilization. So let's say you're that first person of color or that first woman. Is that how you want to be known? You want to be known as, hey, you were the first woman? What about you were a person who was qualified, you had the right stuff. See, this is, again, where all of this is setting a certain tone, which is ultimately this social gospel that inclusivity and tolerance, that is salvation. So these Artemis Accords are based on the Outer Space Treaty that from 1967 that we showed you before, to create a safe and transparent environment. Yes, Summer described what it was earlier. And, oh, here we go. Yeah, this is the clip of him pushing the Guidestones
considered
over.
By some conservative Christians to be satanic, was badly damaged by an explosive device. One of the 4 granite panels on the Georgia Guidestones monument was reduced to rubble. The attraction was built in 1980 from local granite and commissioned under the name R.C. Christian. The 19-foot-high panels bear a 10-part message in 8 languages with guidance for living an age of reason. The so-called American Stonehenge also serves as a sundial and astronomical calendar. The bombing is under investigation.
Yeah, so we had a clip, too. I just don't want to miss that. That wasn't the clip. But here's the clip, where they're knocking it over to make way for the new commandments. And part of this idea in the Artemis Accords, Section 10 reads, the signatories emphasize that the extraction and utilization of space resources, including any recovery from the surface or subsurface of the moon, Mars, comets, or asteroids, should be executed in a manner that complies with the Outer Space Treaty and in support of safe and sustainable space activities. The signatories commit to informing the Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as the public and the international scientific community, of their space resource extraction activities. So the United Nations has to be involved in all of it. You have to tell them what you're doing. Got to report to them. And the signatories will affirm that the exploration and use of outer space should be conducted with due consideration to the United Nations guidelines for the long-term sustainability of outer space, which includes inclusivity and tolerance, and, of course, all of these other ideas that we pointed out here to you tonight that promote.
Well, and you can see, too, that, since these people were involved in creating all the mandates that created the orchestration of everything we saw around the world in the last 2 years, right? They clearly had a hand in that. And so they've also got their hand in this. Therefore, if they've got this committee that's now coming up with different protocols to handle if the aliens are coming, what are those protocols? What are those things that they're going to put into action?
Yeah, we're going to look at some of those. We're going to predict what those commandments are probably going to be. Here's another. Here's another clip from our timeline. Just the NASA announcing the team members for its UFO study.
Well, last week we told you about a recent spike in UFO sightings here in this country. Well, now we know who has been tapped.
Really, a recent spike in UFO sightings, or maybe it's the same amount of UFO sightings. They're just talking about it, and they're eager to have you thinking about
Problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah.
Last week we told you about a recent spike in UFO sightings here in this country. Well, now we know who has been tasked with solving the mystery. NASA has announced the 16 people who will spend the next 9 months studying UFOs, among them former astronaut and retired U.S. Navy Captain Scott Kelly. The team will examine how the UFO data is gathered by public, local government, and other sources. The goal is to determine which sightings are natural and which ones simply cannot be explained.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Hey,
Don't miss the Today
there's
Show
Al
every
Roker.
weekday at 11.
There's Al Roker's jumpsuit or something. Where did Al Roker go? Anyway, so here we go. Now this is this month at the end of our timeline. Right here, we get to the COP27 for these new commandments. So we're going to hustle through this section. We've shared with you all the bits from this story. You can look at our last show here on True Normal TV where we went into great depth on this. Now, what do some of these commandments look like? This is an example from, this is a PDF of a document from 2013, the 10 Eco Commandments for Earth Citizens. Peter Meinke Gluckert, former head of the Science Resources Division, OECD, Paris, France. So, affiliated with the Paris Climate Accords, the Paris Agreement, it's also called. This is a working paper of the Eco Commandments. I would say this probably is going to be part of the working model for the commandments you're going to see come out Sunday. It also comes, what is informing this is the 10 commandments that the Pope gave at some point a few years ago. We've covered that as well, but it says the persons in charge of communicating the commandments welcome practical ideas for the survival problems of mankind and nature. It's a typo. Thus making a contribution to the additional annotations of the 10 Commandments and the goals as stated in the preface. Now, the goals stated in the preface, the 10 ecological commandments represent a sustainable decalogue there for Earth citizens, bearing responsibility by birth for sustaining planet Earth and its exuberant nature and creative wisdom. All right. Translated to, listen, they have all been translated to different languages such as Spanish, Portuguese. I know you, that's not, I know you got to translate it so people can read it, but it's just funny. It's interesting. The Guidestones just went down in July. Okay? What do these things say? All right. The first of the 10 commandments. Respect the laws of nature. What does the first commandment on the Guidestones say? Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Respect the laws of nature. You see that same sentiment all through the Guidestones as well. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Realize there are clear limits for the citizens of Spaceship Earth, set by nature and enforced by nature. You need nature, and nature needs you. Now, have you ever read? Have you guys, look, guys, come back over here. Have you ever read? Do you like Dr. Bronner's soap? You like Dr. Bronner's soap? Have you ever read that thing? Have you ever read the label? Okay, segue.
Now you're really going off.
Well, yeah. You got if you like Dr. Bronner soap, you got to check out that label. It's this stuff all over it. 1,000 words on there. Okay, so that's first commandment. The second commandment, learn as responsible Earth citizen from the wisdom of nature. Learn from the wisdom of nature. Remember, the whole is more than its parts. Science must aim at the whole, regarding details as integral ingredients of system Earth. Nature, wholeness is global. Strange words. The third commandment, do not reduce plurality. It's probably in Italian here. I don't know. Originally, the translation's strange. Do not reduce plurality, richness, and abundance of living species. Do not industrialize nature. Do not streamline nature. Diversity of species is the most precious natural heritage of mankind. Talks about species disappearing. Fourth commandment is do not pollute. Avoid pollution of water, air. Follow the principle of nature, precaution, sustainability in all economic activities. The fifth commandment is face earth responsibility every day for our children and our children's children so that they may live on an unspoilt, livable, peaceful earth. Try to leave this place a little better than you left it. There's nothing wrong with that, if you want to be a good steward. But we can clearly see the problems here. There's no honor or glory to the one who created it. Sixth commandment is lifestyle patterns, neglecting impact on world climate, economic growth. And the seventh, whatever that word is, chondrotefical, quality economic growth in coevolution with nature. The seventh commandment is act as you speak. Do not lie to yourself by making a distinction between the principal acknowledgement of the environmental cause, and your own little sins, which are unimportant in comparison with the big sins of others, such as those in the case of industry. Right, so, interesting stuff. Eighth commandment, prefer intelligent bioeconomic solutions, smart grids, learning from nature, wisdom collected by bionic research. Prefer nature, intelligent solutions with smart grids. How about that? Eighth commandment, smart grids. What happened to the ninth commandment? There it is. Information about environmental damage belongs to mankind, not to privileged big business, not to anyone alone. Avoid information pollution. To protect nature, to overcome environmental damage, needs courage to tell the truth. And their 10th commandment is listen carefully what your own body tells you about the impact you're having of your very personal, social, and natural environment. It's clumsy. Environmental awareness and sensibility start with many signals from your own body, which link you with larger ecosystems of our earth. Man and nature are of the same origin. We're all living on planet Earth, must obey the same billion-year-old laws of nature. I've been waiting for this.
Billions and 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 billions.
Nature teaches you lessons every day. Your own body is your well-minded nature interpreter and personal health exercise teacher. Body pain is an important warning. On and on and on. This is strange. Learn by training exercises to follow this survivability body language using properly natural muscle motion and breathing, Chinese medicine, and body culture. So, yeah, there you go. So there's an idea of, where they've working up this idea of 10 eco commandments for Earth citizens. Probably not the best example you'll find, but that is in the spirit of theirs. And we talked about this on the last show we did here. I encourage you to go check this out about faith for ecocide law. Now, this is where they want to bring in and make it and create in the international courts. There are 4 things that they prosecute. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court in The Hague is where most serious crimes of concern to the whole international community are being addressed. Often referred to as the crimes against peace. And they list 4. The Hague prosecutes genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. They would like for the statute to be amended to add a 5th crime, ecocide.
This is just the taxation system. It's a taxation system.
Yeah, that's ultimately what the whole... Now, if you're going to look at it from a fiscal point of view, That's definitely what this is about. But what is ecocide? Well, it means the mass damage and destruction of ecosystems, harm to, and so this is subjective. Who decides if you've damaged something? Harm to nature, which is widespread, severe, or systematic. Eco derives from the Greek word oikos, meaning house or home. So you're killing your home, they say, making the worst cases of environmental destruction criminal on an international level, imposes a duty of care on those with the power to make decisions that affect humanity as a whole. And so this goes on once again, and it is very, very religious. It is a very spiritual kind of document, and we look forward to seeing, look forward to it, but we're interested to see what comes out of these 10 commandments that are going to be released in the next day or two.
Yeah, it'll be quite curious, right? I mean, I wonder what they're going to sound like.
That's right.
And yeah, ecocide too. I mean, that's just like classic advertising 101 in the sense of you want to find that motivation, like, oh, we need to scare everybody with these scary facts and figures to make everybody think we're all going to die.
That's right.
It's always, we're all going to die, so we need to do this.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's the thing. It's fear, motivated by fear, because they don't have the truth. They don't have the truth, so they have to compel people any way they can.
It's manipulation.
And the fear comes from different areas. Tonight we've been talking about perhaps fear from out there. Folks, the fear that everyone needs to be aware of, the only fear that you need to recognize is fear of the Lord. That's where wisdom comes from. That's where wisdom begins. And so I'm going to keep the microphone open. Summers, you comment throughout this as we wrap it up here.
Yeah, we've been here for 3.5 hours now.
Yeah. But it was, this was fun. This was really a lot of fun to be here and do this show with you tonight. And it was
very much so.
It was hard to get this together and get it out because we were working on another project, but.
Yeah, this one just came forward though. It was like, we got to do this. We got to do this.
Yeah. Summer was put this was the catalyst behind this, and so I'm glad we brought this forward here because this has been it's an important topic. We could probably hone it down a little bit, but we want to do these long form shows so that we have viewers who have attention spans.
Yeah, and we can sit there and show you all the research, like all the primary sources, so you can see for yourself.
Right. We want to show you where it comes from. So, what does the Bible say about what we see happening before? So, Romans chapter 1 tells us here, that after, one of the most important pieces of Scripture there are, Romans 1, 16 and 17, where the Apostle Paul says, I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power. The gospel is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. To everyone who believes. How do you believe? What is belief? For in this gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith. For faith. So it is within this gospel, that is from where the truth emanates. That is the power that changes your heart. That is the power that opens your eyes. As it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. Then in verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Summer, what is it that Ecclesiastes 3 tells us again about everyone?
God placed eternity in our hearts.
Yeah. And what that ultimately means is that everybody knows the truth about why we're here, who put us here. It's just to different levels we suppress that truth. Verse 19, for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. Even though they knew God, they didn't honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Now check this out. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images, idols, resembling mortal man, and birds and animals and creeping things. They exchanged the truth, the eternal, immortal truth of the immortal God, the eternal truth. They exchanged it for an idol that can't speak, that will die, that will pass away, just like the earth. And what happened? God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator. God gave them up to dishonorable passions. So this goes on to talk about the path and even the order that things happen in. God gives them over to dishonorable passions. You can see here where sexual revolution is here, then you can see a homosexual revolution, and it goes on and gets worse and worse, consumed with passion for one another, the women and the men committing shameless acts with men and receiving themselves the due penalty for their error, disease, heartbreak, heartache. And since they didn't see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done, filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil covetous malice, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but they give approval to those who practice them. So they invite everyone else to come do it with them. It's okay, right? If you don't live like us, you're missing out. Or you're fundamentalist. So what does the Bible say about these aliens? Well, the earth and mankind are unique in God's creation. Genesis 1 teaches that God created the earth before he even created the sun, the moon, or the stars. Acts 17 states that the God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples that are built by hands. He made every nation of men that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the times set for them and the exact places where they should live and where they should die. Originally, mankind was without sin, and everything in the world was very good. When the first man sinned, the result was problems of all sorts, including sickness and death. Even though animals have no personal sin before God, because they're not moral beings, they still suffer and die, Romans 8. Jesus Christ died to remove the punishment that we deserve for our sin. When he returns, he will undo the curse that has existed since Adam. Revelation chapters 21 and 22 tell you that. Note that Romans chapter 8 states that all of creation eagerly waits for this time. It is important to also note that Christ came to die for mankind, and that he died only once. If all of creation now suffers under the curse, any life apart from the earth would also suffer. So it's not just us, it's also the earth. It's not just the earth, it's also the universe that's fallen. Everything in the universe is winding down. That's the law of entropy. If, for the sake of argument, moral beings do exist on other planets, then they're also suffering the fall. And if not now, then someday they will surely suffer when everything passes away with a great noise and the elements melt with fervent heat. 2 Peter 3. If, for the sake of argument, these beings exist, if they had ever sinned, then God would be unjust in punishing them. But if they had sinned and Christ could die only once, which he did on earth, then they are left in their sin, which would also be contrary to the character of God. 2 Peter 3:9. What we're telling you here is there are no aliens. There are no moral beings out there, creatures. This leaves us with an unsolvable paradox, unless, of course, there are no moral beings outside the earth. What about non-moral and non-sentient life forms on other planets? Could algae or even dogs and cats be present on an unknown planet? Maybe. And it would not do any real harm to the biblical text. We've said that before. If aliens did exist, it doesn't change our faith at all. But it would certainly prove problematic when trying to answer questions like, since all of creation suffers, what purpose would God have in creating non-moral and non-sentient creatures to suffer on distant planets? God is not arbitrary. People often say that about the Reformed faith or the Reformed theology, that God arbitrarily chooses who will be saved. God has never done anything arbitrarily. He's a perfect, maximally great and perfect being. All of his decisions are perfect. They're not arbitrary. Anyway, in conclusion, the Bible gives us no reason to believe, right? Aliens would be an arbitrary creation, is the point. And the Bible gives us no reason to believe that there is life elsewhere in the universe. In fact, the Bible gives us several key reasons why there cannot be. There are many strange and unexplainable things that take place, but there is no reason to attribute these phenomena to aliens or UFOs. If there is a discernible cause to these supposed events, it is likely to be spiritual, and more specifically, demonic in origin. So we hope that you've enjoyed this presentation here tonight, this long-form version. And I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Summer, for being patient with me this week in this work. And I just want to express how much I appreciate your hard work and your partnership in this work. And
it's an honor. It's an honor.
Well, what would you like to say to the folks as we sign off tonight?
Thank you for joining us over here and for being with us and supporting our work. And I would actually, as we were going through that teaching, I was just being reminded that we are so blessed to have the truth, and these people out there that are participating in the enslavement of humanity and doing this unknowingly, not understanding the spider web, just being one cog in the system. Pray for these people. Pray for them. So
yeah, definitely. Amen to that.
Yeah.
It's that's a really important point, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because it's crucial that we remember that these are all image bearers of God. Ultimately, we've talked about that a couple of times tonight. Someone brought that point up, and it's important that we fulfill our duty here, which is the Great Commission, that we carry the gospel everywhere, as far and wide, and that we teach these people to do all that Christ has commanded. That means the whole counsel of God, all of Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Not just one or two. It's not just the two, those two commandments that Christ gives there in John's gospel. That covers everything. But when you want to know specifically how to handle something like this, you got to go to the whole counsel of God, and you've got to live this out. You've got to understand that the people in the world are consumed with the idea that they need to save this place and that somehow or another they can will it to be. They can will a certain salvation of their own selves.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there. I remember believing in the law of attraction and all of those notions, you know, that you can manifest your reality and that you want to be the change that you want to see in the world and this, that, and the other. And it's just really a sobering thing to think that there's so many people out there that are really bought into this philosophy, this worldview that the world's headed toward right now.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, my friends, for being with us tonight for this long one. We will probably see you next time live, Lord willing, you know, over on Armor of Truth. Thank you for joining us this week at True Normal TV. And we, please spread the word. Let's get some folks. You know, what actually happened this week was we lost about 20 subscribers on True Normal TV. It was all the people who didn't remember they were subscribed to us. And then they realized that when we went live and, you know, rescinded it. And that happens. So we just want to remind you that we need you. We need your support. We need you to spread the word. Share the message of the gospel first and foremost, but then tell them about Armor of Truth. Lead them to Armor of Truth YouTube channel. Send them over here to True Normal TV because we can't do this without you. And we look forward to seeing you next week back on Armor of Truth.
Yes, we look forward to seeing you next week on Armor of Truth. So have a great night, you guys.
God bless you.
God bless you.
The hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick. And so that people learn to duck their head and not speak up. Because bad idea now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Citizens are advised to take the following steps.
Find us, armoroftruth.net.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.
good luck. We're all counting on you.